6:36 on May 27th. We're going to start with our study session today for the Timpanogos School Board. We're going to have today a discussion. We have present David Smith, Michelle Sorensen, Sterling Hilton, and Jen Lyman, and we have Grace Rex coming in from Hawaii, so virtually. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I believe board members Wilson and Fugel will be on their way. Oh yes, and we have our BA and our superintendent in attendance as well. So today the purpose of our study session is to have a discussion on our criteria to come up with a draft for the criteria for thriving and robust schools, both elementary and secondary. So we're going to be taking the information that we have received through presentations from staff and others that we have collected information from, and coming up with our best thinking. As much as we did with the vision, we will then take it to staff being principals tomorrow, and then we will be going to the public with cluster meetings on next Monday and Tuesday.
June 1st and 2nd?
June 1st and 2nd. Yeah, so I'm going to turn the time over to Vice President Hilton to get our discussion started.
Okay, as Jen said, our goal here is to actually come up with an actual draft. We need a product by the end of our meeting that we are going to bring to the principals tomorrow to get their reaction and response to and refinements to. So we can talk, and ultimately we've got to be making some decisions about what our best criteria are going to be. Just wanted to be clear about the need to make a decision about our criteria. So you can see what's projected is Jen and I have put together, based on all the information that we have received in our study sessions over the past couple of study sessions from the leadership team in terms of their observations about what makes a robust, thriving elementary school, what makes a robust and thriving secondary school. We're going to start with the elementary. This list right here represents Jen's and my memory and takeaways from that. Our goal here is to get the other board members' comments and take on this so that we can move it forward. So the first thing that we thought was clear from our conversations was that the size number of students in the school is a criteria that makes a difference in terms of whether or not it is robust and thriving. And we walked away from our conversations thinking, understanding that there was a minimum of 3 classes per grade up to a maximum of 5 per grade. Does that jive with the rest of the other board members? So chime in when you want to make a comment or observation. Yeah,
That's
Joe?
Not taking into account special programs.
Right, that's
3 to 5.
right. Well, actually, my understanding is that the 3 would be the minimum without a special program, and that if you did have a special program, being a DLI or an ALL, that it could move up to 4 or 5. But that 5 would be the max even if you had a special program. If you had more than that, then that was my understanding and takeaway. That might give a little bit too much. And the rationale for those number of classes was that it allowed for robust collaboration among the teachers at each grade level, and that it also then allowed enough flexibility in hiring specialists for the specialty offerings. And more specifically, we walked away understanding that 4 was really the sweet spot in terms of number of specialties that an elementary should and could offer. That gave them maximum flexibility in their schedule without infringing or encroaching on other sorts of things.
And that was so that every student would have 4 different options throughout the years, as well as freeing up teachers for collaboration time.
That is correct. That is right. Yep. And at least I want to, one of my takeaways and intents here is that we, in this criteria, that we're trying to establish something that's going to be fair and equal across the schools in our district, so that one school isn't advantaged by size and therefore they can offer 4 or 5 specialties, and another school is disadvantaged by their size and can only offer 2. Or if they wanted to offer 3, they might drain their trust lands fund. Anyway, so there's an equity piece in this for me, and I think for others as well. Is that right? Okay. We also that class size also had an impact in terms of allowing choice and flexibility in terms of assigning students to classes, and that gave the principal then some flexibility in balancing class sizes and having some flexibility there. Was there more on that, Jen, in terms of the flexibility and choice? Okay. And then this might be obvious, but we wanted to state the obvious that those numbers then would also then result in the never needing to have split classes. You'd never need to have a first and a second together, or a second and a third, and it would just avoid that challenging situation altogether. So those were all of the criteria that we could remember thinking of, and that was given for this criteria of having a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 5 in relationship to the size number of students at the school. Are we in agree? Can we get a amen, a thumbs up, or anything else on that we're missing? We're okay? All right.
Yes, I do have a question. On the fourth bullet point, is that because with the size that they'll be, it will reduce them, or is that because of a policy or a procedure decision that we make that we reduce them? Do you understand? No, that doesn't make sense.
I didn't quite follow that. If you could try again.
I think if I remember right, when Katie was describing it, when you have 3 or more classes worth of kids, it's going to even out in a way that you don't have to split classes, right? So if you have, what's the number? 45 kids, you can't put them all in one class, but splitting them to 2 is really hard too, because now it's so small that it's not efficient. But when you have 90-ish students, it can be a little under or a little over, but it evens it out. Is that what you're asking? Yes. So it's because of the math.
Right. It is because of the math. Right. Yeah, and this, I guess I think it is worth being explicit about, and maybe we type it in here and our criteria. This is with the assumption that class sizes are going to remain essentially what they are right now. This isn't an attempt to either reduce or enlarge class sizes from what they currently are at the elementary level. It's assuming the same ratios.
Can I also add one element, and that is public support? Elementaries depend a lot on volunteerism in their classrooms, and room mothers, and anyway, I think that's a consideration, that when you have a healthier school, you have more volunteers to draw from, and maybe some other people could speak to that.
No, I think that.
I'm not going to speak to that. Supporting collaboration, and that helps create healthy collaboration groups too.
That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's number 1.
That's the first bullet point.
Yes.
Under that it's like you need a minimum of 3 teachers at the table to have the idea of a healthy and robust collaboration team.
So do you want it to say grade level collaboration?
Teacher.
Or PLC collaboration.
Supporting grade level
Because we're not
PLC
talking-
collaboration.
yeah, we're not
no,
talking
we're
about
talking very
district,
no, we're
yeah.
talking very specifically at the grade level PLC
Yeah.
collaboration amongst the teachers.
Right.
Yes, we're talking about that. Yeah. Good. Does that capture that criteria and the rationale for it well enough? Okay, let's move on. We feel like there's part of this mix is we've got to make some decisions, establish some criteria for program offerings. And by program offerings, we're not talking about the specialties at the school. We're actually talking about additional programs at the elementary level, specifically gifted and talented programs, as well as DLI programs. Now, I think the only thing that was clear to, I'll now speak for me, I think speaking for Jen too, but I'm not positive, walked away from our conversations in the past saying we want them. They're an important part of robust and thriving elementary schools, but that's as far as we got. And I feel like this is a place where we need to have some conversation amongst us to move beyond, yes, we want them, to what's the frequency? What's the rationale? What's our thinking behind wanting these to then help us in our decisions about, because this impacts all of our conversations. So Michelle.
I would say this is a number one value of parents in elementary schools. If you ask them what they value having programs such as gifted and talented and DLI. How that's structured might be different than what it is now, but they value this opportunity for their children, and I think it also would help draw people. Having specialties will help draw back, and having these programs will help draw.
So that's a rationale for having them, right? Is hey, our clientele, our parents, we want them for this kind of an experience, and parents want them as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Michelle, do you think that it's I know the answer to this.
Okay.
Do you think it's the GT
You know your answer to it.
parents and the DLI parents who this is the number one priority, or do you think this is all parents in Timpanogos School District elementary schools? Because I'm thinking of Vineyard Elementary, where my kids went, where I live by. I don't think the number one consideration they have is GT program and DLI. That's down the list. They're choosing to go to Vineyard as opposed to go to Orem up the street or Cherry Hill across the freeway, you know.
But I think that there needs to be equity. I'm considering Jen in Pleasant Grove, where she has said, my children never had this opportunity. And I think there needs to be equity throughout the district to offer these programs. So I think it needs to be there, and it needs to be somehow equitably distributed throughout the district.
And by equitably
Equitably.
distributed, you're talking about access.
Access, yes.
Not necessarily the district is providing transportation to these
Right.
programs,
Location.
but it's location so that at least you're not asking one community to drive exorbitantly longer or farther than another community.
Did you have people in Vineyard choosing to go to Westmore or Cherry Hill for DLI?
I'm sure I don't know about Westmore, but I'm sure we have students who leave the boundary to go to DLI and, for that matter, ALL.
Yeah.
But the ones who stay are making that choice.
Right. They still value what's at the school, but
Yes.
I think that
And maybe they value the neighborhood school more than they value the DLI opportunities or the
So,
ALL opportunities.
so it's a play between valuing a neighborhood school and a program.
For some
Yeah,
people.
for some.
Yeah. And for me, this speaks to our one of the things that I walked away from our field trip of last week when we went up to Jordan School District and we were visiting Jordan Ridge Elementary, where they have a model where they have a GT specialist, a coach, but I don't know if they call her a coach or a specialist or something, but a GT designated person, teacher in the school that supports extension opportunities for the students in that school. So for me, that's very appealing for two reasons. One, it is an equity issue, access. Everyone in that building has access to some kind of gifted and talented extension if they either desire and or warrant that. They're not being asked to leave their school and choose between them. It's like, nope, we're providing that there. So that is very appealing to me for that particular reason.
And I think that's what all parents would say is the opportunity for equitable access to programs, whether it be special ed, which we do mild moderate at all schools,
Right.
or
By law.
GT by law, or GT, which Alpine has chosen not to do
Correct.
at every school, although a lot of schools are pretty good at that anyway. But I think that's what parents want.
Correct.
I think it's good for us to understand what a gifted and talented program is, by definition, what it is and what it is not. And at the same time recognize that I think the parents want us to challenge their students. They want us to pull out the best. So that's why I really love the idea of having a GT specialist or someone who's GT aware at every school, so that we're setting a culture where we're pulling the best out of our students, regardless.
Pulling the best out of each student.
Yes,
Yes.
regardless of whether they're in a GT program or not, because GT is actually meant for exceptionally high achieving children that will not thrive the way they should in a regular classroom. It's also not geared for those who are not, and they will flounder in that kind of environment. So anyway, I think it behooves us to define what GT is and to set a culture where we do expect teachers to build capacity in their students and challenge them to achieve the very best in our classrooms.
I just to echo that, you used the word culture. I think in our visit to Jordan Ridge, one of the things that stood out to me most is it's not that specialist is the only person pulling kids out here and there. She's creating a culture by building capacity of teachers to actually have a culture of kind of a little more challenge across the board all the time. Right.
And I'd like to build on that idea of challenge, because I think, for me anyway, that's how I have interpreted and understood parents who promote or who speak to valuing DLI, is that almost always they value it because they want their children to be challenged. It's another way. It's a mechanism that is not it's not a formal gifted and talented. In fact, you don't have to do any kind of testing. So in that sense, it isn't gifted and talented, but it does offer a challenge to their students, and that's what they're looking for. And so they opt in. So that's what they want from a DLI program.
There are some people, some families that choose the DLI because of a heritage, possibly, that would go I mean, not that they don't want their kids to be challenged, but I think that that's also a consideration that they have is that um, it's a familial thing. Their family speaks a certain language, so they want their kids to have a familiarity or so I think that's another consideration for the DLI.
So I guess I'll be honest with you. I am struggling to articulate some criteria around programs. I know we want them. I see value in them, but I don't have the specificity to say, oh, we want 3 to 4 classrooms at each grade level, and we want 4 specialties at. It's for me, it's kind of like, where's the criteria that we're going to use that would figure into our conversations as we look at this boundary study?
Is that something that we can hold on and defer to the conversations with our administrators and further field trips? Because we do know that there are other ways that these are modeled, and we haven't explored those yet, and to get the input from our administrators.
Yeah. I know of an administrator that I've worked with who agonized over balancing the needs of her general ed students with her program in her school. It was an agonizing exercise for her. And so, yeah, I think there do need to be some parameters around our programs and how they impact the general ed students in each elementary.
So Michelle, I appreciate your question about can we delay being specific, just knowing, is it enough to know that we want them? Jason, I want to ask you, how would knowing, what kind of specificity would benefit you and your team that doesn't exist, but that might, who knows, in creating different hypotheticals with different boundaries and different considerations once you get this set of criteria? Does that question make sense?
For the programs?
For the yes, at the program.
I think if we can provide options of if this is where the program is or if it's not there, like both options. So
do you need to know, in figuring that out, do you need to know how many, for example, how many DLI programs we're going to support? Do you need to know the model for the gifted and talented to know, yeah, we're going to continue with the ALL model where they're all pull-out magnet, or we're going to shift to a different model, whatever that may be. Is that going to impact your work?
Yeah, the more details, the more direction the board can give, the better on that. But if it's something where we need to, as we go, be able to kind of see how it goes and play it by ear, then we can make that work too.
Okay, good. With that understanding, I'm wondering, is there anyone sitting in the audience? I don't call you a peanut gallery. Is there anyone sitting in the audience that might have an opinion or might have some ideas that you want to put on the table for us to be considering as we think about this particular aspect of our criteria? Anyone?
And I think we have lots of data that we can get for you to look at, even within existing programs, where kids are coming from, their boundary school. Do we have predominantly in-boundary students for our existing programs versus where are they coming across our Timpanogos area? And we have all of that data that we can get for you guys if that's helpful. I've been a principal at a DLI school, and there are some considerations. I think we do have time as far as the DLI, because if we say, okay, we want this number of teachers on a grade level, and then up or down 1 or 2 within, okay, we're playing with 4 instead of 3. But if we look at a school and say, okay, how many currently in boundary students would follow that program, if we shift it, what would it do with the existing enrollment and the siblings? And that data might be helpful. I think for gifted and talented, if the decision is to look at moving more into the specialist and we're pushing in versus students that are traveling, that will change boundary enrollment up and down depending on where those students exist, as well as the staffing in the number of teachers, and if those teachers, instead of being a classroom teacher, become a school level specialist, how would that distribute? So I think maybe seeing some of those enrollment numbers, seeing the trends of different areas, and then the boundaries, because we have all of that data that we can pull, might be helpful as we consider the other criteria. So I'm thinking if we know we value these programs, we go through and set the other criteria, then we might be able to say, okay, so then if we want this size, what does it look like if this program is present in this way? And then we could push those numbers into that model, which I think would help Jason. Is that helpful at all?
Katie, one of the questions I have for you too, like on the top bullet of school size, there's these 4 criteria. Jen wrote there equity of access under this program of DLI or ALL.
Yeah.
Are there other things besides equity of access that you would say should be kind of criteria that we consider regarding DLI or ALL?
I think any time with those, because those are teachers, we need to provide support. And what does ongoing support for their embedded professional development look like? So then just considering the type of model, what support levels do we need to exist, whether it's facilitating cross school, a district person that kind of oversees that, but just thinking through, okay, are we creating a one-off that's so specialized that they won't be able to collaborate, knowing lots of these practices cross all sorts of content and levels, but that we just want to set those programs, those schools, those students up for support, and what does that look like long term as far as supporting the learning for kids, the learning for the adults. So I think that would just be a consideration across, any level, any program, but are we thinking through how we will help them continue to be successful?
Okay.
Vic or Kim, your background is a little different. What do you have to add to Katie, or what other thoughts would you have? I'd get up, but I'm going to trip again.
Mine might actually be more of a question than any solid information at this point, but I would be curious to do a study on the social and emotional well-being of students in pull-out ALL programs and how that might impact them, how other students are impacted. I just think it would be an interesting thing to look into. And I think there are a lot of students that benefit from what these programs offer, not just the ones that are pulled out, but these students are typically given more opportunity to be creative and to think critically, and these types of things are great for all students. And so I would be really curious in how we can really strive as a district to ensure that every student in every classroom gets to have that.
Well,
Kim, do you have an opinion on the social emotional benefit or not currently?
I imagine that it's probably mixed, to be honest. I'm sure there are studies out there that talk about how that stretching is really great for students. And there may be some out there where there's more of a striving to, do you feel that you're in this special situation and you have more perfectionist tendencies and you feel more anxiety and pressures just in your life in general to succeed or perform? And which is not to say that we shouldn't do it, but I'm just curious, what are some problem-solving aspects that we could consider so that all of our students are healthy and thriving?
One thing that might inform your thoughts on that is in this school that we visited, they reevaluated their leveling every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. There were 3-week cycles where there was entry points to their leveled teaching. So that was interesting to me.
And we have a question. I know, Vic, we want to hear from you too. So Grace is just texting me, and she asks, is there a way to put a DLI or a specialty program in each elementary school? So to have that available as far as, I think she's talking, and Grace, can you chime in? Try to talk. Maybe talking about equity of access. If we, because I know, oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if there is a way to make each elementary school have a program, like a DLI program or an ALL, or even if it is a STEM school or something that makes that school feel like it has an identity, that gives parents a reason to stay at their homebound school.
And it might look different than it does now, right, Grace?
Exactly. But maybe that is something that's not possible. I don't know what the financial ramifications are, or if we can even make every school that big to handle.
Well, and to speak to that, Grace, I know that Superintendent Jensen is going to be heading up to Wasatch on Friday, and every school in Wasatch County School District has a DLI program in it. Every single elementary school.
And it's
But it's
one
one
language.
language.
It's Spanish only.
So it's supported. So that could inform that decision, and that's just more of our information gathering.
Which that would be another question that I would put before this group and anyone else that has that comment. But let's hear from Vic first. Vic, did you have anything to add?
He's trying to turn on his microphone.
All right, I guess my thoughts are this. As you're looking at a criteria, it would be nice to see if the board defined what your end goal or purposes of a DLI program. Is it to produce students who are fluent in that target language? If so, I'm curious as to how many students actually matriculate out of the program, completing it where they are fluent in that target language by the time they finish high school, because it should be looked at a K-12 spectrum, not just a K-6. So that maybe that's just food for thought, is like, what is your purpose of the DLI? And then I find it interesting.
Well, I'm going to interrupt. Will you forget what your next point is?
No.
Okay, because I would if I were interrupted. But so I'm gonna ask what Joe asked. Do you have an opinion about what you think that purpose should be for a DLI program?
Personally, as someone who is multilingual, speaking a variety of languages, I love being able to understand the language and the culture of multiple different languages. However, as a community member, I find it very interesting how many students who complete the DLI programs, even when they're in high school, do not even engage in their target language. They unenroll from the language programming and are almost hesitant or reserved in continuing their engagement with it. So I would say if you're to define a success criteria for a DLI program, I would propose that one of the criteria should be looking at maybe empathy, or looking at critical thinking skills, looking at different perspectives as you engage with other languages and cultures, because I think many of the people who complete the DLA program struggle with just acquiring the language. And I think that's also evident in K-6, where you hear many times in these DLA programs, you pack those first grade classes in really high, because by the time they're in sixth grade, they've dropped out for whatever reason. And it will continues on through high school as well. So that's maybe one criteria to look at. Like, is it feasible to support this from a K-12, not just a K-6?
Vic, one of the things.
What was the other thing you were going to say, though?
Just someone who's lived in 2 different areas in the Orem area that has DLI programs. It's very interesting to see how a DLI program can actually divide the community and, in fact, drive away people from their neighborhood schools. A board member said, "Hey, how can we make like these neighborhood schools have like a special identity?" But when you do that, you actually kind of invite people to go to other schools because they might like the identity of a different school. For example, my neighborhood school is Orchard Elementary, which is DLI Spanish. But if you're not interested in that program and where the English only side is really small, you run away from that program. You're not going to go to that program because it doesn't serve your needs. It's not a neighborhood school.
You don't identify with that.
Exactly. And then also within the community, you have almost the haves and the have-nots. So you've, in my opinion, you've devalued the neighborhood school by having too many programs. But that's just a personal opinion.
So Michelle and Ada and I were able to listen to Amy Hunt, the assistant superintendent. She brought a couple of people from the USBE to present last week. There was some concern about the new legislation that has been passed about what is it called? Holding back kids in third grade, and the concern that we see, I think in some of our, and yeah, I'm sure Katie can speak to this, but there is a third, when they entered DLI, or there's like this third grade slump. Am I speaking correctly on that? That there's usually, we see a dive in testing scores, and so a concern for me would be if we are exacerbating a problem of third grade literacy, because if we have more kids being held back because of that third grade slump is what I've heard it referred to. So.
And I think that's statewide data. I think we may not have the same thing, because she also mentioned there's quite a few DLI schools in state turnaround, and we are not in that boat. Our DLI schools are not in that category of turnaround. So that could also be a piece of data that you can see where are we over time with these literacy outcomes, because what she was speaking to will impact all kids. And that's saying, you know, if they're in a DLI, are they excluded from additional intervention? No. Do the English teachers still teach the same literacy standards? Do we still, you know, share kids across classrooms to ensure that those ELA skills standards are learned? And a lot of that is how it's designed. It takes a little bit of nuance, especially if you're in a smaller school, on how do we share kids when we're in a really small enrollment. I think that's some of the sticky that we see our principals and our teachers really wrestle with, that some of the other criteria bolstering some other access and teammates might mitigate. I know she also brought up a concern, and there are competing studies, so we can also pull up the research, because there's a lot of research with DLI and neuroscience and long-term higher achievement outcomes, as well as looking at two-way models. Now, a two-way dual language immersion model, a true one, has the same language acquisition scaffolds embedded in both the target language and in English. And if you don't have those additional strategies on the English side, we're not providing intervention on the English side for the second language learners. So that's also a nuance, that we need to look at some of those practices if we are wanting to lean that way in our higher ML student population schools. Then there are those additional layers of support that need to happen in English, as well as the acquisition of the target language. And again, coming back to Vic's point of, you know, the outcome purpose, if we're doing a two-way model, a true two-way model, versus we're just going to do an immersion model. And I think a consideration at that high school level, I think that's what he's really looking at. You know, there are lots of offerings, and following through the Bridge program does take away elective opportunities. And so kids are selecting between, do I finish out and do my seal of biliteracy? Do I join a music program? Do I follow my passion for art? And I think that's a wrestle at those secondary levels that we need to consider, that we see kids that, you know, still love the language and they have all of these other pathways that they're now pursuing, and what does that look like long term? Yeah.
One of the things I appreciated that you started with, Vic, is what is the purpose of DLI? Is it aligned with our vision? In essence, that's what I heard you saying. One of the things the state person also said is we have a lot of flexibility on what we do with DLI. And one of the questions I would put to the group and anyone who has some expertise here is, would there be wisdom if it is a vehicle that gets us to our vision, right, of genuine learning, knowledge, skills, dispositions, which I think it certainly can be if a lot of it's how it's done. But would there be value in one language rather than multiple different languages? Because that's one of the things they said they did. That's what Wasatch does. They do one language. So those are just questions, and I don't know the answer to that because I don't know how passionate parents are about a particular language, or is it the vehicle that matters? Darren, you?
Well, I'm just wondering too, if gifted and talented and DLI are really the only two programs we should be considering. I know Vic made a strong argument for how maybe programs could hurt a community, and I can see that point. But there are a lot of other options out there. Should we be considering International Baccalaureate, for example, or an arts program, or just any other programs that might better contribute to realizing the Timpanogos vision for learning?
Well, and to that, for me, Darren, I appreciate that because for me, that's where I'm going back up to the 4 specialties that are at each school. Those are programs, right? We're supporting computing, we're supporting PE, we're supporting arts of some kind, and I maybe 2 different kinds of arts. You know that those are programmatic, and what we're saying is, at least how I'm interpreting it, is we want those programs in every school, and that the ALL and the DLI would be additional programs beyond that base of those programs. So I'm not sure where we value them. I still don't know if we have a criteria.
Community input could be good here.
Yeah.
I think possibly even a survey of the community and what are the programs or specific subject content areas or values that they hold that they would hope that we can help their students with.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we need to move on because we've got just a few more. Oh, go ahead,
Can I just
Ada,
suggest that
please.
when we talk to our communities, we should ask questions like, would you rather have this or would you rather have this? Do you value this versus this? Do you want embedded, gifted and talented, or do you want a magnet program? Do you present some options to them so that they can communicate to us their level of support, so that we have a little bit of criteria for how they're thinking about those decisions. Anyway, just some thoughts.
Yeah.
I underline possible need for further information. Definite need for further information. I'll change that.
And so with this, I think we continue to seek that information tomorrow when we meet with our principals, especially at the elementary level. We'll seek their perspectives and their feedback to try to, again, establish and move towards some more specific criteria. And in the meantime, we're going to task Jason to apply whatever criteria we end up with and then be willing to not fudge, but I mean, shop it. I mean, it's like it might be here, it might be here, it might be this, it might be that. Yep. See that until we can find gain some clarity. And maybe that shifting around might actually help us establish some of that criteria just by the practical nature of things. Okay, we've got a few minutes left, and we want to talk about there's 2 additional things. But one is Jen and I heard also that for robust and thriving schools, there's a certain amount of support that is required at the school. So this, in my mind, speaks in somewhat to what Katie was saying, that if we've got to be thinking about support for any program, this is now support at the school level. And we heard that assistant principals were valued and needed for robust and thriving schools, that a counselor and or social worker was needed, that coaches, instructional coaches, slash, when I say instructional, I think focusing on instruction, that could be through the PLC process or it might not be, but it's something that is supporting the teachers in their core business of teaching. And that then we've thrown out this idea of possibly a gifted and talented specialist at each school to support, again, the learning that goes on there. Are there any additional supports that you guys can think of that you want to add to the list?
Professional development opportunities on a local level.
Yes,
I'm not
but
sure.
that wouldn't be. But that would be more at a district level, right?
Correct.
But not
That's what
at.
I'm
But not
thinking.
at a school level. So this is
Okay, we're talking school level.
This is at a
Okay.
school level, so that it's like what's happening at a school.
Yeah,
at a school
although
level.
I think there should be some, especially through trust land funds. They often use that.
Yeah,
For
I think, in my opinion, in my thought, is that adding this assistant principal allows our principals to be the chief learning and teaching leader. Did I say that weird? This instructional leader in the school. So then they would be director of that. That would be their role. And because of the additional, all of the busy work that principals have to deal with, administrative work that they have to do, having an assistant principal frees them up to focus more on that. And that's something we've heard as we've gone through our vision tour.
And when
with
you
administrators.
consider coaching is kind of a job embedded professional development source as well. There would certainly be other forms of professional development at different levels, maybe conferences, district level, all of that kind of thing. But at the school level, I would argue that the coaching is also a really crucial part of that professional development.
To me, having that third bullet point up there doesn't belong there. And the reason why is because, to me, that's a coach. That is a type of coach. I'm not saying we shouldn't have that. I don't think we've decided that yet. But a GT specialist is a type of coach, as is an ILC coach, as is a PLC coach, as is a literacy coach. And I think instead, we should have coaching as the third bullet point, and with why list just that different type? We need to put up there somewhere ILC, literacy, PLC, because that's what we're getting at, is what kind of support does a school need, and we need to grapple with that, not just a GT specialist. That would maybe be my fourth choice of the four that I listed, but it's still important, I get it, but it belongs with the other coaches, not by itself, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's, and I might disagree with that, but yes, I appreciate your perspective.
And I appreciate.
Can I disagree with David?
Oh. Yes. Go ahead, Grace.
I kind of disagree with David on this one, just because a GT specialist would be specific.
Can we cut her off?
May it be noted that Grace and I are, I think, disagreeing with David.
Go ahead, Grace.
Go ahead.
Keep going, Grace.
Sorry, Grace.
I can't see your faces right now. I'm looking at
They are friendly.
You know what my face looks like.
But I just worry that if you put GT specialists in with coaching, that you can mix and match what a coach does. And if a principal decides to take out the GT, it would be easy to take out. And I really think it's because most coaching deals with getting lower end kids up to average. And that's where we kind of miss the other end of the spectrum of the GT kids that need that. So I kind of feel like it needs to be its own thing, not just a coach.
See, and I agree with you. and disagree with you as well. So I agree with the GT specialist part, but also coaching, in my mind, coaching is to help make our teachers better and increase their capacity for all students, not just the students that are struggling. So I don't see it as an interventionist. I think that's a different thing altogether. The coaching is, like Ada was talking to, that developing the capacity and ability of all of our educators in each building.
And I think, though, that I think what maybe, Grace, you're saying is what I have observed, which is that coaches in practice are often used as interventionists to support those teachers who are struggling. And so there's a perception, even amongst the faculty, that, which it shouldn't be. I absolutely agree that it shouldn't be, but I think in practice it often is. And so there is that perception of, oh, I don't need a coach because I'm not struggling, rather than, oh, I need a coach because I want to excel. While that might be what we want, I don't think that's what's really happening, if we're being honest.
Thank you, Sterling. That's what I meant.
Michelle, I think you've been meaning to say something for a while.
The support offerings assistant principal, that may not necessarily be an assistant principal. It could be a TAA too. Yes. It's just someone serving in that role.
Administrative support.
Yeah, in that role.
Can I ask a question? Are we in this area also wanting things like nurses, like our community outreach liaisons, special ed service providers like occupational therapists, school psychologists, all of these types?
Well, thank you for muddying the water, Kim. Yeah, I just have, yes, I think yes, I think that has to be there, right? We have to have some level of support in all of those areas, right? And
so itinerant providers. Is that what you're talking about?
But right, I think you might be wondering, should we have itinerant maybe, or do we need designated individuals at schools?
I think we have a lot of people that would fall into a category called service providers, and they do have multiple schools. And my understanding is that just recently a decision was made for next school year that there would be school psychologists moved from having 3 schools to 4 schools, depending on the number of students and things like that. So that lowers their ability to be a behavior support in the school, for example. And so then are there things that we can do to take a look at that aspect?
Well, yes, I think we do need to add that. What do you call them?
Well, and service providers.
Service providers.
And different schools will need a different level of support.
Right.
So we can, there are some base ones across the board that we feel like everybody should have this as a minimum. But if I'm thinking about Vic's school, he will need a different level of support because of the nature of just his dynamic than a school by the bench in Orem. So we can go through and kind of list out all of those things, just like even having an ML coach or an ML specialist would be needed in certain buildings, more time, more face time, more support than other buildings that still need that, because we have students with behaviors, language acquisition all across the district. But how we want to, see the scale of what level of support, what does that look like, is something to consider as well.
And Katie, to me that's different, so correct my thinking if I'm wrong. That's different than the assistant principal, the counselor, social worker, and the coach, and maybe even the GT specialist, where that belongs at every school. And we're not going to put 2 assistant principals at one school, and that every school gets this, and then depending on need, this might have this, and this
Yes.
might have this, and this might have two of these because of
Yes.
just the.
Because
Okay, thank you.
some of our service providers will need, just more face time in a building because of the student. So I think this might be as a baseline, what are we saying? All schools
Yes,
need to have
exactly.
access. And then in addition, we know we need to support in specialized ways based on the needs in those buildings and how we can really move the learning forward for everybody.
Could we call it targeted support services or something? Targeted?
Yeah. we can
So
do
that
I'll
we
change
don't
that.
have to list
Um,
every single one?
Can you speak to the school nursing? What's going on with that, Kim? I know that there's been a change, and yeah.
Yes, so in the past, we have always partnered with Utah County. So our nurses have always been Utah County employees. They've not been Alpine School District employees. And we have the nurse supervisor, Kim Lowe, has been housed in our department downstairs. And she supervises all of the nurses. We recently, this year, have created a new contract where they will no longer be in partnership with Utah County in that way. Next year, they will be Alpine School District employees. And so we've just recently made that switch.
And what is the ratio that is currently staffed for school nurses? And is that going to change, or would we anticipate that staying the same?
I think that will be pretty much the same. We have 3 or 4 schools per nurse at this time for the most part.
And is it dependent on, so would you have maybe 2 elementaries, a junior high, and a high school? Or is it, because I would imagine that the lift at a high school is going to be different than how is that spread out?
There is a different lift, and the number of students in that school would be much larger than an elementary school. And so they try to find just a pretty good equity of number of students for each of the nurses to cover.
Okay, thank you.
Is that also true for community outreach support?
Community
is-
outreach support is different because nurses just cover all schools in a similar way.
And
but
community outreach right now is
we have 3
targeted.
full-time coordinators and 11 part-time liaisons.
Yeah.
And it's just based on the need. And so we do have quite a few of those placed down here in the Timpanogos area.
So can a follow-up question to that is, in your opinion, does every elementary school benefit from community outreach support in order to be robust and thriving?
Of course. I think every school could benefit, but I think we would probably want to look at that a little more deeply with my team and the director, Cassie Saxton, who's over this, to really evaluate the need more specifically.
Okay. In the spirit of time and lack of, I want us to come back to the support offerings here. And from the board now, we need to prioritize them. And again, this is not final. We're not putting anything in stone, but we've got to at least have some kind of priority that we can now then communicate tomorrow and follow up as we move forward. Does that make sense?
So Sterling, currently, every school, every elementary has a half a counselor that's funded by the district, is that?
Currently, it's a half.
And what about social worker?
I don't think that's a half.
No, it's not a half. And at the elementary level for counseling, there are some schools that have a full-time counselor, but that's only because they are putting up that other half through their TSSA funds or trust lands or whatever that may be. But social workers is more typical that you have a high school feed that can also serve the other students. But I know when I was a principal, I almost never saw my social worker. They probably do most of their work at the secondary level.
Is that also true for school psychologists?
School psychologists is more challenging. There was a period of time when they got their ratio down to a really nice, just a couple of schools, and you got a stipend if you took on a 3rd school. And now I think the way that they're relooking at things, I guess in their minds it may be that it's similar because they're looking at the number of pupils and trying to even that out. But when you have 4 schools, that's traveling to 4 different places, and it's just very challenging. So then you end up doing, most of your job is testing students for special ed eligibility instead of doing functional behavior assessments and behavior intervention plans and the things that the schools really need for behavior support.
So you're saying that that model doesn't truly meet the needs of thriving and robust schools?
I think that's low.
Yeah.
The school psychologists are probably considered the behavior experts of all of our different service providers out in the school, but not given enough time to use their training in that way.
Okay.
What relationship does the BCBA have with the school psychologist as far as supporting schools currently, and what should it be?
Our BCBAs are actually our best trained personnel with behavior. They have these specialist degrees. We don't really have very many of them, and they have moved, to my understanding, really just under special education. And so it's not necessarily typical for all schools just to feel like they have access to a BCBA.
Define BCBA.
A board certified behavior analyst.
Thank you. Okay, with all that information, before we move on to secondary, absolutely. Ada, again, this is not a final vote. We're not in board, but we need to know.
I think number 1 would be GT specialist at the very top.
I'm so glad we've persuaded you, David. No, yes, Ada, that is what I am asking. Again, and this is fluid. This is not final, but this is.
But you would like to go on a secondary before we.
Yeah, no, I want to order these before we move into secondary, because secondary is a different animal.
Well, I guess.
I want to know what are the principals, what's their priority? What do they want? Not what we want.
Well, we'll find that out tomorrow. We're giving our 2 cents worth now, and then tomorrow we'll find out what they.
Try to persuade them, here's our priority, let's see what they have. I don't know. Just a thought.
And I appreciate that thought. I wonder that it sometimes is helpful to elicit a response when you give them, say, this is what we think. What do you think? Rather than just, what do you think? So so there's a strategy here of giving them something to respond to, and sometimes that is, I completely disagree. Oh, good. Tell me why. Right? I'm not looking for confirmation. I'm looking for, we think this for these reasons.
And
what do you think?
If I may, I would just ask that maybe rather than prioritizing each of them individually, you make a suggestion of, these are the ones we're hearing or sensing are non-negotiable, must have, versus ones that we think are good to have, but maybe non-negotiable, and then see if they draw the same lines or have different lines.
I love that general criteria, is prioritizing. Which ones are non-negotiable for us, and which ones are good to have? Yep. So what's not, so I mean, let's go bullet by bullet. Is assistant principal or TEA negotiable or non-negotiable?
Non-negotiable.
Ada.
In comparison to the very detailed knowledge of counselors, support professionals, I would say that they're secondary to that, because if a principal has the support of those professionals, anyway, I think their knowledge and experience and expertise has to come first before.
So you would prioritize, so what I'm hearing you say is that the counselor, social worker, school psychologist is non-negotiable.
Yes. Yes.
And
targeted the targeted services.
And that an assistant principal is a good to have.
Yes.
Okay. I think an assistant principal is non-negotiable.
I agree with the non-negotiable, but I also agree with Ada that a counselor in every school is non-negotiable. Those are my 2 must-haves.
We've lumped them together, counselor, social worker,
I
school
know.
psych. We don't mean 1 at every school. We mean that kind of support.
Yes.
Non-negotiable.
Michelle, where are you?
Are we on assistant principal or
I guess we're
counselor?
doing both.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Um, I want my principals to be able to focus on development of the teachers and instruction. So I think a TAA or assistant principal is non-negotiable.
Good. Where do you fall on the next one?
Non-negotiable.
Okay. Guy, where do you fall?
Non-negotiable on both of them.
Okay. It's non-negotiable on both of them for me.
You gotta have that extra principle.
Grace, where are you on this?
I think it's, well, the way I'm looking at it, I don't know if I'm understanding the counselor slash social worker slash school psychologist. Does that mean all three are non-negotiable or one full-time in each school is non-negotiable? Maybe
That type of support.
Some kind of support across those three professions.
Okay. I would say both of them are non-negotiable.
Okay. All right. What about coaching? So we're generally in agreement that the second bullet is non-negotiable, and Ada says is not sure that is relative, right? Okay. So let's talk about coaching.
Non-negotiable.
Same.
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 I think
Same.
to me it takes away a crucial aspect of being a teacher. Yeah, you just, there needs to be opportunity for growth, and this is just one of the embedded ways that we can do it.
So Michelle and then Grace.
I think if PLCs are vision and valued, it's non-negotiable. Can a principal do it? I don't know. I'm not familiar enough to know if we have the non-negotiable assistant principal role. No, too much? Okay, non-negotiable.
Okay. Grace, where are you?
I think it depends on the school. I think coaching is non-negotiable, but how many coaches and which coaches are in a
Yes.
school can be negotiated.
Yes. But they have to have some coaching support.
Some
Okay.
sort of coaching support, but do they all need all the coaches? At the elementary school level, I
No.
don't know about that.
Okay. Thank you.
My one comment on this is I think it has everything to do with how they go about their work as well, but that's also true of assistant principal, that's also true of counselors, right? Because you can have really effective principal, assistant principal, counselor, coach, and you can have really ineffective, right? So I think that's important to keep in mind, that it's also about how we set it up, the expectations and the work and how it's actually done.
And how we support them.
Absolutely.
At the district level, how we
Right.
support those bullet points. Boom, boom,
100%.
boom.
I remember in one of the interviews that we listened to, there was somebody who said the three things that need to happen for a coaching to be helpful. Otherwise, it was actually not good. And I don't remember, I haven't written down somewhere all of those three things, but one of them was that it's accepted by the community. If you have a coach that the teachers don't want in the school or isn't getting along well or whatever it may be, then it's not helpful.
Good point. Yep. All right. What about nurses?
Nurses are required. I mean, they're written into policy, and they are absolutely necessary. Yeah, that's a no-go. I mean,
Do you have one in every school?
No.
I think
So some
support like
access.
we currently have.
Access. Yeah.
I have a diabetic daughter, and the nurse was only there part-time in the elementary school, but there was always somebody who was qualified to administer insulin or whatever on staff. But it didn't have to be a full-time nurse.
Right.
And that worked well.
Okay. Are we all in agreement? Nurse says I've seen nods of heads. Okay. Yeah, not necessarily one, not at all one-to-one. No, we didn't specify.
Counselor counselor, social worker, school psychologist. No, that's not 1-to-1.
It might be
That's
2 to
support.
1, it might be 3 to 1, it might
It
be
may be
1 to
more
1, it might be
support
one
than
and a
it's
half to
currently
1.
given.
It's like, we don't know what that configuration looks like. What about,
But the assistant principal TAA, yeah, that's 1-to-1.
that's a 1 to 1, yes. Yeah, I'm not interested in sharing, having a half-time support for a TAA. GT specialist, okay. Yeah, we got it, this is our last one. Targeted services is needed. Well, okay, let's, GT specialist. There's a debate. So, let's just, right, so regardless of what it is.
We just table that for now, just like we're tabling the GTDLI. We don't know what we really believe yet. So let's wait till we started believing more similarly together so we know what we're going to do, and then we'll know what GT specialist is required at every school.
I'm okay with that. Is everyone else?
Yeah, maybe a
I like
slightly
that.
way of saying, different way of saying that is tied to the DLI.
But,
Yeah.
now, Guy,
Well, I like your comment there. We don't know. But basically, we don't know what we want yet.
yeah, okay.
Right. We know we want, to summarize, we know we want something in the gifted and talented area. We just aren't sure what that looks like. And it may look like a GT specialist at every, if we decide that that's what we want, then I think we would probably all say, yep, then that becomes non-negotiable because that's our model. Or, nope, that's not what we want, something else. And then it might be a good to have, but not a required. Is that a fair summary of where we are on that?
Yes.
And target services is needed.
As needed, yeah.
Okay. Okay, you talk about that.
Well, no, we need to talk about that. We do have this other thing. So for both on the criteria, and this was just our best thinking. So as we're looking at issues, I don't think this is looking at physical facilities. The age and condition of the school is important to look at. Also the square footage and classroom number and lot size. This is going to be criteria, right? So we're not necessarily setting criteria, but we know that is going to be a factor. Maybe not necessarily criteria.
Can we put like factors for both? So when we remember that word factors, not necessarily.
Yeah. Or yeah. Square footage, classroom number, and the lot size. So that is the, and then safety. We talked about safety, and this is a couple of different aspects, correct, as far as where it's located, where the school is located, and specifically close to arterial, really busy highways or roads. Location of the school within the boundary. So this is going to be something that's key as we're looking is centrality is preferred to periphery. What we mean by that is if your school is located in the very north end of your boundary, is that ideal, or that's just something we have to consider. Another thing is ease of access, getting into and out of the school, and also transportation. Is there anything else that we need to have as a factor to consider?
Could I suggest resale value, like a market value of a property?
That's dependent on a lot of factors, though, right? It's not necessarily.
I don't know. I just think it's a factor.
How about utility, other utility of property?
Other uses, in other words?
Other utility, whether it's being sold or
Yeah.
is used for something else.
If you want to do it, if you want to phrase it that way, that's fine. But we just need to consider all the options
Alternative
for
use.
property.
To me,
Michelle,
oh,
no, I was just going to say, Michelle, I saw maybe you had a question about
Can
that
you
notion about the
can you
locality.
Can you just scroll up? So what are we factors to consider for both? Do you
For
mean
both secondary and
Okay,
elementary.
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're
Okay.
and
I
unlike
just
the other
needed
where
to
we're
catch
saying
up to this conversation.
okay.
what we were talking
But these are
So
these are things that we have to consider as well. I don't know that we have a criteria.
Right.
For example, I'm unwilling to say, okay, if a school was built before 2000, it's on the chopping block. You know, that would be a criteria. And I'm like, no, no, no. But if we've got to consider the age of the school as part of our consideration about which ones might we consolidate or which ones might we not.
Thank you.
Because it seems, anyway, go ahead, David. No.
I'm trying to organize this in my mind. Shouldn't physical facilities be at the top? And then we're saying age and condition of school, square footage of the classroom, safety, location of the school, ease of access. Okay, as long as,
So you're just saying physical facilities is covering
factors to
both-
consider
both
regarding
of that.
physical facilities for both elementary and secondary, something like that. And you don't have to change it. I'm just for my mind trying to figure out. The other thing, and I'm not sure it belongs here, but I'm just growth in neighborhoods that feed that future projections. So, for instance, the Vineyard's growing so fast, whereas some other schools we think is going to be down to 40 kids in the next 5 years. That might be something we consider.
But as if these aren't for tomorrow's conversations, right? I mean, you're asking about the robust schools question, which now we're getting into the weeds on a different conversation. So I would personally, based on what I'm hearing, I'd delete these from your list, but we remember them for future conversation, because right now we're just prioritizing robust school. That has nothing to do with alternative use or, future enrollment projections. That's considerations for the next phase, right?
Right, but a robust school, but yes. And I think that square footage and physical facilities and safety, those do.
I meant the last couple bullets.
Okay, those do directly relate.
The bullets you started with and maybe added one or two, yes. Those last two I don't think should be part of tomorrow's conversation, right? Because this is simply prioritizing robust schools.
That's a very good point. I think ultimately we would consider those last two and possibly others, but not in defining what's a robust.
And that introduces another level of.
Yeah, and we're not talking to principals at all about those two questions. But
Okay.
we might mention these and see if they have insight that we may have neglected in our considerations.
Okay, thank you, Tyler.
Yes. All right. Any final thoughts or considerations as it relates to elementaries?
We agree that these, down to transportation, these all have to do with a thriving and a robust elementary. As far as transportation, how kids get to school, that's going to affect our attendance, by either busing or access across busy highways or whatever. Yeah, I think.
by
Well,
ease
maybe
of,
this location isn't as well, but kind of it is. I mean, I can see how location of the school within the boundary can be. It is a hub, right? A school being a hub helps it to be more thriving. I mean, it's part of that community, so that there could be an argument made there.
with ease of access, are you talking about its location in streets, its relation to streets and entry points? I think
I think that is what we
we're
were
not
thinking
talking
of.
about. We're not talking about high level access.
No. Physical access, yeah. Okay, let's move on. Grace, are you okay if we move on to secondary?
Yes, that's great.
Okay. Okay. Everyone stand up. Stretch for 2 seconds. Don't go anywhere. But get the blood flowing back into your brain. And then buckle up. Oh, and give me a piece of licorice.
And a little sugar.
I gotta have a little sugar.
Welcome back, David. Thank you.
All right, here we go. Now, for secondary, this is what we heard in terms of criteria. That we need, that size does impact robust and thriving secondary schools. And the challenge here, okay, and I don't know how to navigate this, you guys. High schools and junior highs, we've kind of got two, those are not the same thing. They're two different things. And so let's just talk about high schools for a moment, and then we'll move to junior highs. Is that okay? That might be a way that we can focus our conversation and not go back and forth between the two. Is that all right? All right, so what I was hearing from the size at a high school level, that in order to have robust and thriving, you need a minimum of 1,200 students at a 10-12 level. Yeah, so
I think it was bigger than that is what we were told. I thought it was like 16, 15, something like that.
I thought that was 10-12.
No, I think the 1,200 might have been the junior high.
That's what I remember, Jason.
I have it right here. Are we junior high or high?
High school.
10, 12. 2 teachers per grade is 1260. 3 teachers per grade is 1890.
So we need about 1,900 if we want 3 teachers per grade at a 10-12 level. And if at a 9-12, we need 2,500 for 3 teachers per grade.
Yes.
That seems huge.
But they also pointed out that you almost never have in high school a teacher that does nothing but 7 periods of the same thing.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So this is saying 2 teachers that teach absolutely nothing but those things. So that's not saying it's a 2-person collaborative team. At 1260, you're still going to have 3 or 4 probably, because you're going to have and then you are always going to have a whole bunch of singleton offerings.
Well, and you also are hoping, I mean, I would advocate that, again, at a collaborative level, that you've got 10th grade English and 11th grade English and 12th grade English, that there's some kind of vertical collaboration there as well, not just within a grade level. So,
yeah, if you look at the conclusion on that, the minimum for a 10-12 high school would be approximately 12 to 13 is what they talked to us about a couple weeks ago.
That was my memory. And then that for, if we went to a 9-12, that the minimum would be 1,600 to 1,700 students. Those would be the minimum.
We're looking right here, the conclusion is where we got ours from. Okay. The 1,200.
I think if we asked the 4 high school principals whether 1260 was a robust school, the answer would be no.
Well,
and John Hanks said something similar to that when he said as he reduces down to 1,600, he's worried because he feels like he's pinching right now.
What about, so that's, and in our discussion with this might be, we might be informed a lot more during our principal meeting tomorrow because of that fact, because we have schools that are, I mean, you've got, Tammy's going to have a different view than John is going to have, just because of that difference in size and how of lived experience. So I feel like, kind of like Guy said, like maybe in this we have a very loose criteria as a board, and we're informed more by our principals in this. But that's just my thought.
Yeah, and an Orem High has had more of the extra FTs than a PG High to be able to have the comprehensive program. So
that's right.
And they've been around 1,150 to 1,300 for many years and needed the
and
most.
they've still needed that additional support in order to provide
So
that comprehensive. So that does speak a little bit to a larger size. That might be a low number. Yeah. So on this one, I think we do acknowledge that there has to be some kind of minimum. We're not quite sure where our firm minimum is. Is that a fair statement? Okay.
So you mentioned the collaborative team aspect here, but it's not represented in the folder. So you might want to add
that part about the 2 or 3 teachers, the collaboration part, because that seems to be critical to what you're talking about. And I was at the presentation and they talked a lot about it, but I don't see it represented here, and we want to represent it for them tomorrow, correct?
Right. No, I think it always is possible. You find it might not be at the school, right? I mean, but
Right, but you might have, so for example, Bob Steele at Orem High taught 7 different things, and so literally to try to have a collaborative team for each of those
Right.
7 things becomes virtually impossible. So you would have to choose.
right,
You know, what am I going to collaborate
correct.
about?
Yeah, that's true.
I wonder too, not to put more on the plate, but I wonder if now would be a good time to consider additional programs for our secondary schools. We have CTE, we have DLI, but I know of a number of districts that they'll have specific focus, a career track for each high school. I wonder if that's something we would want to consider.
Speak a little bit more to that, could you, Darren? What do you mean
For
a career track?
example, maybe there's a school that partners with one of the universities to offer medical professions as their focus, or theater, or other specific tracks where we could partner with businesses, partner with universities, and perhaps have a magnet per se in that high school for specific careers.
And in a small way, we do that already in the CTE world especially. So for example, Mountain View has the diesel mechanics.
Yeah.
Timpanogos has welding, but they don't both have both, right? So, I mean, there's a little bit of that now, but you're talking about a little bit more
Yeah,
extensive.
I'm just saying now could be a good time to consider that. If we're considering everything, including elementary programs, maybe now is a time when we could sharpen our focus for specific schools in meeting the needs of our community.
Darren, can I ask a follow-up question? That is, does that enhanced focus depend on, or is it, how does the size of the school impact that? That's really my question. Is like, does number of students at a school influence how we think about that, or is it independent of that?
I think I probably yes, but I think there are cases where it's more often because it's so challenging to get highly qualified teachers. It's often the teachers and the staff that would at least start the ball rolling in those schools, and the talent pool that we would have to work with. Them partnering with our community and business leaders and seeing what their needs really are.
And that could happen whether or not there were 1,600 students at the school or 1,200.
Yes, except the number of students directly influences the number of teachers.
And so you're thinking that the larger the number of students, the
Yeah.
larger my faculty, and therefore then the larger the chance that there might be faculty members that might be able to take
Yes,
this kind of role.
but
Is
every
that-
high
am
school
I following
principal
your
will tell
thinking?
you that there's a limit to that, and you don't want to go over certain numbers for high school sizes.
Yeah, and there's definitely an element of more offerings if you have a little bit bigger faculty until you reach a certain point where it's too big, right? So there is a sweet spot.
Unwieldy.
And one of the things I would wonder is from an access standpoint, do you want to create that conundrum that Vic talked about, right? That it almost, you're going away from almost the neighborhood school. I'm wondering, just even from a CTE standpoint, they've got pathways. So there is a medical pathway. There is a computer pathway where kids can take a series of classes where they then actually graduate with a CTE certification in that pathway. But yet, in other ways, there might be a place for a very specialized thing.
I think that depends on if you create new ways to create connection. I mean, that's the draw of a neighborhood school, is the connection that you feel. If we did do things that drew people away from their neighborhood school, we would have to create new ways to create connection. So very deliberately, I think.
Or there could, yeah. This is, I mean, this is in part also pushing me back to our field trip last week when we were talking about in the virtual learning schools. You know, there was collaboration between MTech and their credit recovery and their, I mean, you know, there were different points of places where those high school students could receive and access while still staying at their neighborhood high school and benefiting from that community of the neighborhood high school, but there was a broader set of offerings for them. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
I think that field trip helped me to see how creating thriving, joyful students for each student was more a matter of allowing them more options to be able to do everything that they would like to do.
Well said. I took that away as well. And I think that helped happen. I mean, that's evident here in our next bullet point of a comprehensive program. That's what we mean by comprehensive program, is having enough choice and options and alternatives. And some of those options and alternatives come in the form of AP classes. They come in the form of concurrent enrollment. They come in the form of CTE offerings. They come in the form of the DLI Bridge program, thinking of it K-12 now, not just at the elementary level. That those were some of them. And what I'm hearing is that Darren might add additional types of career, right? Career paths.
Not a hill I'm wanting to die on.
No. You don't have to die on it.
But it's something we could consider right now
Right.
as we're considering other things.
Right. Yeah. That would be that would be part of the menu of choices if you were. That's what we mean by a comprehensive program.
Right. I felt like I did want to hear some of that in the secondary discussion, so thank you for verbalizing that.
Yeah. And I think in a small school district where our high schools are not really that far apart,
There's an opportunity.
yeah, there's an opportunity there to still branch out, but still remain a part of the Timpanogos School District community, that we create that community connection as well.
I think another challenge here, just with the complexity, is we should probably be also considering potential options for a future tech center in Timpanogos. For what other school experiences could we create, like a virtual school, where students would participate in their district or in their local school, and our offerings, our own local tech center or other type school offerings.
Are you speaking like, I can't remember.
I love MTech,
Yeah.
but it's a bit of a drive now for our students. Yeah. And so should we be asking the question of what paths do we need to lay in order to create our own school here, facilities and programmatically?
Like, I can't remember which district, but they just had an article that they're providing the internship path to becoming an educator in their in their secondary, well. in their high schools.
Yeah, where was? Yeah, I read. Yeah.
Is it Granite? I can't remember which one.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Unless it's something different.
No, it was Salt Lake.
That's actually
it was Salt Lake.
That's actually one of the CTE pathways that they added about 4 years ago. I want to say 5 years ago.
Probably 5 or 6 years ago, and Alpine has that.
Okay.
Is it in the high school? Yes. The high school courses?
Yes, it is in the high school.
Okay, thank you. Great.
So with all of that, I don't think our intent or need is to articulate what those options are at every single school. And even if we could do it right now, I don't know that we'd want to. I think that's where we want to allow autonomy, right? Some decisions, and that might be based upon some of the talent pool that they have at that particular school, right?
A good example of that, Sterling, is the number of AP offerings range between 14 and 19 between our 4 schools. And that's not that one is trying to offer less or more. They just happen to have the staff that can teach those classes.
Right. But there's some idea. I think if we were to push our thinking, and I don't know that we have time to push our thinking right now, but I think if we were to push our thinking, each one of us has some kind of, even Guy, I think, has some kind of a floor about what's the minimum number of AP classes if we're really going to call it a comprehensive, if it's really going to be, we're really providing choice. Because it's not just one AP class. It's got to be a lot more than just one. Does that make sense? And I'm not necessarily suggesting that we find out what that is, but I think it exists amongst us, and we'll recognize any violation of that in any kind of a proposal.
Is there a place where we can find the definition of a comprehensive course offering for secondary?
I don't think so. I think Alpine started using that word,
Yeah.
just saying, not as a definition from somewhere, but just saying they offer everything they need to graduate and to accelerate kids. And so every school's a little different on what they offer, but everybody offers AP US history.
So there's no definition.
No. Nope.
Okay. And equality, or not equality, equity per
Yeah,
for
I
schools.
heard that term tossed around as a board member, and I was sure that it was written down somewhere, but
Right.
but just this year to have discovered that no, it's not written down.
Okay.
But you do have to.
It's a concept.
Yes.
It's not a
yes,
definition, it's a concept.
Correct.
Yeah.
And maybe we want to.
Maybe we need to define that if we're
In our
considering how many AP classes
in our
we
district.
want at each high school. You know.
Yeah,
I don't think we need to define comprehensive. I think we need to define robust. And
Yes.
that may be the same word, it might be interchangeable, I don't know, but robust is what we're going for.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and I don't think that those, yeah, I would agree with you, David. I think we need to define what.
Can you say that again?
Yes, I agree with you, David. Won't be the.
Can I say that too? I agree with David.
David, we're back on the same thinking.
I move that we adjourn.
All right, so.
So remember the word robust.
Yeah, yes, it's
Thank you,
robust
yes.
because comprehensive is a part of robust, but there's more to robust than just having comprehensive. It's having healthy collaborative teams. It's so the AP classes, the CT offerings, the DLI bridge, those are part of what we were talking about in terms of comprehensive, right? That it's meeting the needs of each student, both to graduate and to accelerate, right? It's that challenge piece that we were talking about at the elementary level, right? I see the master schedule, that next bullet, as helping us articulate. I think there is a specific criteria that we heard that principals want to be able to have enough students that it would warrant offering core classes every period, so that allows them some flexibility in their master schedule, that they really run into real challenges, which, and it's not just an administrative headache, it's then an offering headache, and it's putting limits on the choices of what the students can do if they
challenged.
To be challenged,
Yeah.
right? If they if they aren't able to offer core classes every. No, I heard, but I heard at every period. Did I mishear that?
That was Dr. Jensen, our superintendent, who said that it just makes things a lot easier if there's 10th grade English offered every period, 11th grade English offered every period, so that the kid has the flexibility to say, yes, I want honors English and I want the top level choir and I want to take AP whatever. That's going to be an option because they can take
that. They can
social
move
studies
that
anytime
they want there, right? Now that in my mind, I think that then has some implications in terms of number of students. It's only justifiable, or it only makes sense to do that if you have enough students that would warrant offering those core classes every time.
Also, when we talked to Jordan, with the virtual offerings, that gives the flexibility to do that if it doesn't fit in your schedule too.
And the question, so I keep coming back to this thought that if we're adding ninth grade to high school, how does that help with being able, because if we don't have enough 10th graders, we're not able to offer enough 10th grade English, right?
Correct.
So our, yeah, so that's something that we need to consider. Yeah. Are we helping? I think we're helping in regards to, there's a lot of other issues as far as a ninth grade in the high school. But maybe this criteria isn't one of them. Maybe that's one of those side factors that we.
It's not going to increase the number of sections per 10th grade English
for
class.
core
and that kind of
classes,
thing.
but it could aid with elective.
What it can help is because you have more teachers in the building, you have the opportunity to have specialized class, like an AP something or a very specific, a Shakespeare or creative writing. Does that make sense?
And so what you're saying is those electives, those specialties, then substitute for the core, right? Because I don't have to take 11th grade English, for example, if I am taking.
No, you do actually have to. Well, yes, that's true. That's true.
And I think how I would add to that is, with the exception of perhaps English and maybe even math to some extent for the first couple of years of high school, and then social studies maybe for 1 year or 2 years, there's not a set 9th grade English, 10th grade English. You have to take 9th grade English. You have to take 10th grade English. If you fail 9th grade English and then go to the high school right now, you have to make up 9th grade English. Not an English class, 9th grade English. 1 quarter, you got to make it up. But once you get past 11th grade English, you have to take more English, but it can be mythology or it can be a number of other things. Once you take world geography, world civ, and then U.S. history, there's lots of choices in social studies.
Well, starting in 2030, you have to be Govern Sid.
That's correct,
for a full year.
as a full year. In math, there's a little bit of flexibility after secondary 1 and secondary 2. Science, there's lots of flexibility that you can go any direction you want. So the offered every period is really in English and maybe a little bit of a math. Maybe a 9th grade social studies, but after that it's not. It's just options.
I'm looking up the master schedule of our smallest high school, and they're able to do that now, even with like English 10 is offered every period at Orem High, English 11 also, and then looking at the math, most of them have like a secondary math 2 every period except for maybe 1.
But how many FTEs is our smallest high school supplemented with by the district?
Right. No, probably 2 to 4 in that.
Really? Two to 4 across the whole high school? Oh, okay. I thought it was more. I'm glad that it's not.
That is a lot. That sounds small, but it is still that's a
significant amount of
like
funding.
it's not cheap to have 4 extra teachers.
Right. I just had no calibration, so that just says fewer. Grace, what were you going to say?
I think we actually had more supplemental help or extra FTE before we decided to split, and they've been slowly taking some of that away every year. So we don't have as many helping. It's been difficult the last couple of years.
So I know at Mountain View, when I was a principal at Mountain View, we were close to 1,500, and we got 1.5. Timpanogos was a little bit smaller than us. I think they got 2.5, 3. Orem's always gotten more because they've been so much smaller. But again, we're not talking 14, if you know. Yeah. And
14.
then junior highs, add in junior highs getting some as well, and there goes the price up.
The number of 13 or 14 has been thrown out there. Is that across our South District? Comprehensive total, yeah, including some elementary supplemental.
Well, so in like FY25, which would have been during when the split happened, so they would have already been allocated. The total given to the South was about 43 FTEs, but that's K.
Secondary?
No, that's K-12. So 43.
Extra?
Yes.
Including that classroom size reduction.
Right. That's eliminating splits. That's DLI programs that have
Right. That's the number that I was thinking
the
of.
43. But that's when I've presented in the finance thing of saying if we can get from 43 to 20, we're going to save $5.5 million, whatever the. I
Right.
don't remember the exact amount
Right.
on that, but eliminating that 20-something FTEs, getting down to where a healthier part there by grade configuration consolidations.
Yeah, I was.
We couldn't survive 43, 45 extra FTEs K-12.
So will that be a different number then for 26? So if they have reduced some, will we be able to get that information at the end of at the close of the budget year?
It would also be very interesting to have the junior high and high school principals when they come to the meeting tomorrow, if they brought with them that number, and most of them would know that or would be really close. Yep.
That number for FY26 was about 28 and a half.
28 and a half?
Mm-hmm.
On a secondaries?
No.
All.
So 43 to 28 and a half. So if we do this for 2 more years, we won't have any.
If we follow that same trajectory, and there's going to be more pain points, because I think there have been some pain points.
Yeah, and that was a push.
To align budget with.
Which
This is
I appreciate, quite honestly.
This
That's
is a
helping
question
us
for Katie.
recognize the reality.
On that line, you end up not needing the comprehensive, you don't end up needing the extra FTEs in elementary either if you have a robust size, right? Because would you say the majority of those FTEs go to small schools to avoid splits, all of that kind of thing?
It's supplementing our really small schools, running programs, places where there isn't, and there are schools going into the year where there's not one teacher on a grade level, everything's a split because of the size. But if we have the student enrollment, we have these robust elementary schools, is it possible there might be a random split because that age, there's a weird, bubble of enrollment? Sure, but they would be qualifying for that funding, so it wouldn't be on us to try and plug a hole and come up with money that year on year they would have the enrollment, they would generate the WPU, we'd be able to fund it. So we shouldn't see that moving forward.
Okay, great. All right, then I think the last bullet that we could think of at the high school level was we thought that it would be beneficial for us to ask ourselves the question, how does adding 9th grade to the high school contribute to a robust and thriving school? So we would appreciate anyone's thoughts around that.
I've heard from counselors and teachers that they would appreciate having 9th graders in the high school. Teachers appreciate the opportunity to get them geared up to the high school level of work and expectation before 10th grade. It's just 1 year sooner that they're working at that higher level. Counselors would appreciate the opportunity, I've heard, keeping them on track and ready to graduate and just being with this. And coming from a junior high, already having 1 year of high school is a really difficult catch up sometimes. That's what I've found talking to community members.
I'll just speak from Lake Ridge point of view. They have a very high rate of 9th graders on track. And they have that because they've focused on it. So that's just an argument. Yeah. Kind of, it just depends on the focus of the school. But do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that I have asked myself, what could Lake Ridge do for the 7th and 8th grade students that they aren't currently doing because they're focused on making sure that their ninth grade students are moving you know, and I make that, I ask that question because clearly it's taking effort. I know it does because I've been at that school on their community council, right? So I know it takes time and effort, and since that is limited, it's not going towards something else. So that's why I've wondered. I wonder what the focus could be for the 7th and 8th graders if they didn't have to worry about the ninth grade.
I've thought about this a lot for many years, actually. And I've come to the realization, for me, not for the community, not for you, this is an optimization. It's not a right or wrong. There's ninth grade in high schools that works great, and there's ninth grades in junior high that works great. And if there was a right or wrong, if one was perfect and the other one was bad, everybody would have gone to the good one and left the bad one. That hasn't happened. Murray District, which is perhaps the most fond district in my heart, was 10-12, 7-9, 10-12. Yet you go down to Canyons, and all of a sudden they're 7-8, or I think they're 7-8 or 6-7-8, I'm not sure, 9-12. Provo, which is almost, borders our community, 9-12. They've been there for as long as I can remember, and Alpine's been 10-12 for as long as I worked, for 40 years at least. There's not a right or wrong here. It's optimization. What do we want? How is this going to work with our pure feeders that Grace wants, along with our robust high schools that we all want? It's an optimization. It's not a right or wrong.
So what I'm hearing you suggest here, David, is that moving the ninth grade to the high school is not necessarily to provide a robust and thriving school. It's an optimization issue, which still is an important consideration, but it's not, we're not arguing it from a robust and thriving school
It
perspective.
might help us with robust, and that way we think, oh, let's do it because it's going to help us with that. But it's not we can't have robust without ninth grade. We can't have robust junior highs without ninth grade. It's not that.
It's not that.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear that.
And if I may, just a suggestion again, as I've done previously here, right? I think this question, because this list of bullets are for all secondary schools, right? The conversation tomorrow will be with both levels of secondary, that we reframe the question to ask a hypothetical, not even that specific, but how does potentially, a grade movement or an adding or subtraction of grade help or hinder this formulation of a robust school, something like that, that it isn't that specific as written here, but more open-ended, and let them give us feedback if they see something in their experiences like David's alluding to as far as the optimization.
Could I say something?
Of course.
I would have to disagree a little bit with David in the fact that it is more than optimization to take ninth grade up, at least the way it is done in Alpine. Because we don't have true feeder schools, it doesn't work very well to do ninth grade in the junior high. Speaking as one who has ninth graders that go to the small minority of ninth graders from Lake Ridge going to Orem High, it is a real problem for those ninth graders. They do get lost. They do get set aside. Programs are, and not just academic programs, which is the case, but also our sports, our arts classes, a lot of those programs are really, really difficult for any of the kids to get into from Lake Ridge because of the way it is done. So optimization, yeah, but it's also just for good thriving for each child. We either need to do the true feeder schools or we need to take ninth grade to the high school. And that's my firm opinion on that one.
I would have to agree coming from the Timpanogos perspective, where we take from 3 junior highs. That's difficult to come here and support thriving extracurriculars.
And I'm just going to agree that Grace and Michelle know more than me. I know more than me, perhaps, but my kids were a minority at Vineyard Elementary and went to Orem Junior. and then they were a small minority at Orem Junior and went back to Mountain View. And there was some friends issues here or there, but in the end, uh, they thrived as well at Mountain View. They thrived at Orem Junior. Um, so my lived experience is different, even though I do see what you're saying, and I've seen that at different schools. Maybe that's a school issue. Maybe that's an Orem High issue. Maybe that's a Lake Ridge issue, and not a ninth grade at the high school junior high issue.
All right. Any final thoughts, Michelle?
I wanted to ask where we've considered some of the support staff with elementary, are we considering support staff with high school?
We did not. I don't think we heard. I don't remember hearing that as part of the conversation and presentation. And I think I'm conjecturing now, but I suspect that that's because it's just kind of a given that the support staff that the high schools, the secondary needs are kind of already in place, and that's there. I don't know if that's the reason. Yes, meaning counseling, meaning school psychologists, and coaches. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I assumed because it wasn't part of the conversation from a couple of weeks ago.
It might be a good question to ask tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you. Very good. I think that is a great
Especially because the counselors might be a given, like you're saying, but the school psychologist
may
is
not.
Social worker is not. Some of the other is not. And coaches are just as negotiable at the high school as they are at the elementary. And we just said they're not negotiable. So right, putting that there, asking that question, having that be part of the.
And I think, again, at least historically, coaching at the secondary level is not nearly as systematic and supported as it is at the elementary level.
And number of assistant principals, like what's the formula there, stuff like that.
But they already have but we know they're going to have assistant principals, right?
And that's been addressed very recently in making it so it's more I'd say more doable. Like there's been a time where there's two assistant principals at a high school. That's not, and they've made the changes. We just need to continue with that.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, historically, I think that's true about coaching until the last 8 to 10 years. At the secondary, it's been way more robust and effective. But it goes back to what I said before, and even with these configurations, it's how we do it.
Correct.
Right? Like that's going to affect whether it's well executed or whether it's robust.
And whether it has the impact that it's intended to. Yeah.
Can I ask Grace the question? We're going back to where I was wrong and Grace was right. Tell me, Grace, are you saying that if we did a 7-8 school at Lake Ridge, at all the junior highs for that matter, we wouldn't need true feeders? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you said? Did I hear that?
You inferred that, but I heard it too.
The need would not be as great. Exactly. Would it still be better to have true feeders? Yes, I believe it would be better to have true feeders, but it wouldn't be as great. I think especially for 9th grade to graduation, it's very, very important to either have true feeders or 9th grade in the high school. But this also brings the question for me is, are we going to look at 6th grade into the junior high, or is that not on the table?
No, from my perspective, I think it is on the table, and I think that speaks to Tyler's suggestion that what's the impact of moving a grade level? And that's a question we need to ask the elementary. And it's not just, we're not going to move kindergarten out. It's what if 6th grade were to leave your school? What would the impact of that be? How would you? And I think that would be the same question that we would ask junior high. What if 9th grade were to leave and 6th grade were to come in? And high schools, what if 9th grade came in? I think those are questions we need to ask.
And Grace, can you tell me more about why 7-8 would still be an issue, but not as much? Tell me about the not as much part of that.
Well, I think because it doesn't impact, impact the overall programs as much. So for instance, to graduate, you have to get a certain amount of science, a certain amount of um, other things, but math, and et cetera. And how they do it at the different high schools is different. So say Lake Ridge, or let's give an example of science. Lake Ridge would offer honors biology because that was how they did it best for Mountain View. But honors biology, if you took that and they actually wanted you to take biology at the high school, so you couldn't get into chemistry at Orem High the same way, and you had this honors biology class when they really wanted you to take biology once you got into high school at Orem High, and it just was confusing for kids.
Okay, thank you, Grace. I get it.
Okay.
Okay, that's good. Any final thoughts? Well,
who's
we did
make-
open a can of
who's-
worms, but it needs to be open. We've got to start figuring this out.
Sterling, who's going to be making this decision?
All of us. Oh yeah. Welcome to the party, David. Yeah, yeah. So this is what I see. We've got our thoughts, as clear or as muddy as they might be. We've got our thinking that we're going to take tomorrow to our principals. We're going to meet with them, with the elementary principals at 8 and meet with them from 8 to 10. We're going to meet with the secondary principals from 10 to noon. And we're going to, this is taking place
Technology upstairs. So
at the purchasing building upstairs in the, okay. And we're going to have this conversation with them tomorrow to find out what are their insights, what's their input, what's their feedback, where are our current blind spots, where do they agree, where do they disagree.
Are we streaming it?
We are not streaming it, but we are recording it.
Thank you.
For board member use, that'll be for Grace.
It's
And
committee.
yeah, it's committee.
It's small committee.
It's a small committee. There will be less than a quorum in attendance. Okay, quickly, we have a board governance topic, just really fast. We're going to talk about this really fast. So we do have a public comment button on our website, and so there's information coming. Are you guys all receiving that email? So I'm just going to bring up the topic, and then you guys can think about it, and we will actually come to talk about it again next time, is just how we're going to deal with responses for that. So a process.
I would suggest that board leadership respond or assign it to a staff member. That's my recommendation.
Okay, thank you. We will take
Depending on
that
the
into
topic.
consideration.
I thought you were going to say, or assign it to a board member.
Sometimes it's a very specific thing that.
Yeah, sometimes it's specific.
Depending on the nature of the email, sometimes staff knows how to respond to that better
Okay.
than board members.
Well, we will work on getting a policy in place for that we can handle.
Now, that's just my idea. I'm
Yeah.
listening to your ideas.
Yeah. So anyway, think about that. We will get something maybe nailed down next time, but we are going to adjourn and we'll return back at 6 o'clock for our board meeting. Education meeting. It is May 27th. We are starting at 6:01. We would like to welcome everybody in attendance. Thanks for coming. We will turn the time over. We have a Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Kim Jones, and then after that we will have an inspirational thought by Darren Draper.
Please stand for the pledge. Where is it? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just wanted to share an idea related to kind of an extension of what the study session that we just held. And I really appreciated each of your comments and the openness you are to exploring all types of opportunities for our new schools in Timpanogos. And I wanted to share a principle called Chesterton's Fence. This is something I've been thinking about deeply for about the last year or so. In relation to artificial intelligence and how many people are thinking, wow, artificial intelligence could be used for so many things in schools. And then I remind them about this principle, Chesterton's Fence. Gilbert Chesterton was a philosopher and a writer almost 100 years ago. In 1929, he wrote about this concept. And the idea is this. He says, at times, change makers, we have so much enthusiasm and zeal that we just try to move forward with all of our might. And sometimes we might come upon a fence and quickly tear it down in the name of progress, just so we can continue building. But Chesterton said, the wise change maker, though, will first come upon the fence. And when they do, they will ask, well, why is the fence there? What led to the development of the fence? And then once they understand why the fence exists, then they can decide whether or not it's important to tear that fence down in the name of progress. And so I would just challenge you as a board just to consider the fences that have already been put up over the course of hundreds of years of public schools. Why are those fences there? And is it okay to tear them down, and how should we do that? And what benefit might there be by expanding beyond those fences? Thanks.
Thank you, Darren and Kim. We now have time for public comment, and I'm going to read this little thing. Patrons who wish to address the board are asked to sign up prior to the meeting, and this opportunity will be reserved for patrons living within the Timpanogos School District boundary. Individuals living outside of TSD can submit written comments to the Board of Education. There is time on the agenda to allow for up to 3 minutes for public comment. 10 patrons will be given a maximum of 3 minutes each, and we have 4 that have signed up today. Speakers should introduce themselves by stating their name, and the board does not engage in a discussion during the public comments, but may arrange a follow-up time for additional conversations, or oftentimes we mention something in our board member comments. Personnel issues are not appropriate discussion items for an open meeting environment, and if you have a personnel concern, we ask that you put your concerns in writing and address it to the Board of Education. The Timpanogos School District is a legislative body, and as such, it functions under the same operational rules as other similar bodies, such as the state legislature. Public input during its formal meetings is to assist the board in ascertaining public attitudes and interests. It is not a forum for open discussion or debate between the board and patrons. So our first public comment is from John Gadd. If you want to come up here, thanks.
My name is John Gadd. I live here in Pleasant Grove. Just really quick on your policy that you don't engage. The Open and Public Meetings Act actually allows you to talk about any topic brought up by the public, even if it's not on your agenda. So your choice to not engage is your choice. That's not something you have to do. I would encourage you to discuss things that people bring up in these public comments. I want to talk about the new district office. On your agenda tonight, you have an item that says that you're going to consider I guess allocating money to architects and whatnot to look at drawing up plans for a new district office. I understand this is to be a new building, not the retrofitting of an old building, and I think that's a mistake. You have Valley View Elementary sitting there that you could retrofit. Looks like you're planning to close. I know you don't have a fixed plan, but it's going to happen. You're going to close several schools here shortly. When you do that, you'll have other empty buildings. You really ought to consider using those empty buildings, retrofitting them as a district office instead of building a brand new Taj Mahal, super expensive, raise all our taxes office building. You could also put district employees in smaller schools where the enrollment has dropped dramatically. If you've got like 4 or 5 empty classrooms, put part of the district employees in those, and then at another school where you have 3 or 4 empty classrooms, put part of the district employees in those. That would allow you to keep those schools open and still utilize the space without closing these neighborhood walkable schools that so many parents and so many communities really want to keep open, instead of consolidating into, mega schools, Costco schools. Keep these smaller schools open, fill the space with district employees, and don't build a brand new building. Alpine School District has raised our taxes 12 times in the last 8 years, and if you build this brand new building, surely you're going to raise our taxes to do that. And the way that you're going to do that is to take out some type of a bond. School districts like to take out lease revenue bonds. There's another type of bond, which is general obligation bond, and that bond allows the people to vote when you want to take out debt in their name. There's a really strong argument that lease revenue bonds violate the Utah Constitution. It has a clause that says that governments can't take out long-term debt unless the people vote on it. Now, the Lease Revenue Bond Act was passed by the legislature, I understand that, but it's unconstitutional. And if you guys choose to take out a bond to build this new district office, I would encourage you to do a general obligation bond. Let the people vote. If you choose to not let the people vote and you choose to go the lease revenue bond route, you will be sued. And the suit will say, hey, this is unconstitutional. So you guys will get to be the guinea pig for the constitutional challenge on lease revenue bonds. You can go that route, but I would recommend against it. The better option is just let the people vote. Do a general obligation bond if you're going to take out debt. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Jessica Heldbrink. Did I say that right? Heidelbrink. Actually, absolutely. Lindsay? Lindsay can go first, and then we'll hear from Jessica.
My name is Lindsay Heidbrink, and I live in Linden, and so my kids attend Linden Elementary. I don't want to take a lot of your time because actually Jen and Sterling and Joe came to Linden Elementary. I loved going to their public comment thing when they were talking about the vision for Timpanogos School Board. Mainly, I just wanted to bring up the little issue of how the ALL program is starting to be, in the words of not just myself, but some other parents and teachers I've talked to, kind of watered down. And the issue that was mainly brought up forward by Alpine School District is, there's decreasing enrollment in the ALL program. Now, as I talked to various principals, I talked to Principal Eager, and I talked to Principal Hoops, and I talked to Principal Wells. I talked to all of the ALL teachers, aside from Mrs. Walker at Linden Elementary, and I talked to almost all of the ALL teachers at Foothill Elementary. I just drove over there and just came in and said, can I talk to you about this? Am I crazy? I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't just thinking things. I wanted to make sure I understood and I had evidence. And mainly they were started to be told to only accept students at about 15, 16, I think they were up to 19 at Foothill that they're allowed to accept, and then they were supposed to skim the top of the general ed to fill in the rest. And what this in general does is does a disservice both to the general education students and to the ALL students. I think the Timpanogos School District would be very well served by providing an accelerated program, and I have had a couple parents tell me that they are planning on pulling their kids out if the ALL program is not maintained, and one of them actually told me that she already applied for the Utah Fits All scholarship. Either that or she filled it out but hasn't quite applied for it. And these are some things that our kids really like, and they're really benefited by it. I created a letter. I shared this with all those teachers. I shared it with the principals. I shared it with a ton of parents. I'm on 2 chats because I have 2 kids in ALL program and one who's about to join ALL in 3rd grade this coming year, but it's being presented as an ALL hybrid program because it does only have the exact number at Linden was 15 that had been accepted, and then they were told to stop and then just pick some other students to fill in. Anyway, I don't want to take all of your time, but I made a letter that, again, Jen and Sterling and Joe are kind. They probably already got this, but I'm going to hand it to you guys again, a little more polished, showing all the reasons why the ALL program is such a boon, not just for the students, but for the parents in the schools, and I think for the school district as a whole. Anyway, I invite you to read this, and there's lots of parents I talked to. I talked to probably almost 40 or 50 parents. a lot of people are nervous about having their name put on a list. So I asked only once, I didn't ask more than once people, and I had like 15, some of them are couples, so technically more than 15, but 15 people who are willing to have their name on a list saying yes, they feel like the hybrid ALL program is a problem, and we should maintain the rigor of a full ALL program. I put on some options that both of the schools, I made sure the principals are okay and thought they were good ideas. Maybe combining Linden with Foothill at one of the locations, maybe just accept more out-of-boundary students, or even if we need to, it's been floated a few times, close Linden Elementary and combine us with other programs and help build up other schools. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does Jessica want to come up now? Tyler, could you help her with get that down?
So I'm also here to talk about the ALO program and how it's made such a big change in my life and why you should keep it. Well, first of all, in school, I usually didn't really like school because I felt like it was too easy and kind of boring. Of course, school is still such a great thing, and I still learned a few new things. But mostly, when I was put in ALL, school has been so much better and make me so happy to attend. Sometimes even on Saturdays, I would wish that there was school. And I really hope that we can keep the ALL program because it's made such a big change in my life, and it has helped me a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Okay, next we have Elisa. Is it Elisa? Did I say that right? Elisa Ellingson.
She is so brave, and I am terrified. I almost chickened out, and Ashley Belknap texted me right before and said, "You have to do this." So. My name is Elisa Ellingson, and I just want to start by thanking you. I've come to a lot of these meetings. I sit here with Ashley every week, and I'm just always impressed by your collaboration, your thoughtfulness, your curiosity. I love being here. And I come before you tonight as both a parent with children at Foothill, Canyon View, and Orem High, and as an educator at Orem Junior. My comments reflect not just my own perspective, but also the shared concerns of many colleagues and parents across the district. We know that you're in the process of asking hundreds of questions about how our new district will move forward, and we would like to put forward another question for the board and district leadership to consider something important during this big transition. And that is our current model for one-to-one Chromebooks in secondary schools the best way to meet classroom technology needs? And by one-to-one Chromebooks, I refer to our current practice of assigning each secondary student a device for daily classroom use, which is then brought home each night for homework and charging. I understand why this practice was adopted during the pandemic to support remote learning, to address inequities in technology access, and to reduce overall technology costs. However, with several years' experience since then, many of us feel that it's time to reevaluate whether those benefits are worth some of the outcomes that we're experiencing in our homes and in our classrooms. I could stand here all night and share story after story that I've had as a parent, but I know that my anecdotes aren't the best data. Instead, I'm here to ask our board and our district leadership to get curious about Chromebooks. Ask the students, how much time do you spend using your Chromebook for assigned schoolwork versus entertainment? How much time do you spend on screens each day? Ask parents, do you have the technology, time, and skills required to monitor your child's device usage? Is your child developmentally ready to regulate their usage or to be responsible for the proper care of the device? Can you afford the insurance or the cost to repair the device if it is lost or broken, or the charger, which are frequently lost and cannot be insured? Ask teachers, especially those who were teaching before this model was the norm. Has this model improved student teaching or student learning? Has it impacted classroom management and student behavior? What percentage of students come prepared with a charged Chromebook every day? Ask the research, how does screen time impact children and teens? Does educational technology improve student learning? Do these devices create a net gain in the development of critical thinking, creativity, and good citizenship in our children? Are the answers different for different age groups? Do junior high students have different needs and different developmental capacities than high school students? This is especially important if you're going to be reconfiguring grade levels in our secondary schools. I'm not asking for Chromebooks to be completely removed from schools. Certainly, our students and teachers benefit from the targeted use of technology in the classroom, especially technologies that allow us to differentiate teaching and learning for special student populations. But this time of transition is the ideal opportunity to assess whether our current one-to-one model is truly serving the needs of today's secondary students, teachers, and families. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much, Alicia. Appreciate everybody who gave comment tonight. Okay, we'll move on with our agenda. Uh, our next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes. The minutes were sent out to you in your board documents. I will entertain a motion for approving the minutes as they were sent.
I so move.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, with a motion from Board Member Smith and a second by Board Member Fugel, all in favor of approving oh, is there any discussion? Sorry. Do we have any discussion about the minutes? We're in a line. This is hard. Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, seeing none, the minutes are approved as given to us. Okay, I will now turn the time over to Dr. Jensen for our discussion and action items.
Okay, the first item on for action is a resolution authorizing our participation in the BYU Public Schools Partnership. As all of you know, we went to an orientation with the Center for the Improvement of Teacher Education and Schooling, or the acronym is CITES, at BYU a few weeks ago, so you're fairly familiar with it. Some of you are more familiar with it anyway because it's been a partnership with BYU and Alpine School District for many years. And so this is just formalizing our agreement that we are going to continue to be a partnership with BYU sites in the BYU school partnership.
Okay, I will entertain a motion from the board to agree to participate in the BYU Public School Partnership and to, I guess, pass Resolution 2026-007. Can I get a motion?
I'd like to move in favor of passing resolution number 2026-007, participation in BYU Public School Partnership.
Okay, Board Member Wilson with a motion. Can I get a second?
I second.
I got a second from Board Member Sorensen. Let's have a discussion, please.
I'd like to speak to that. We did have a very thorough orientation, and many of us have been involved with, at least on the Alpine board, with this partnership in the years past. It involves laying the principled foundation for public education, and I just really value the principle base that it gives our work, and I'm in support of continuing that relationship.
Principal, P-L-E, right? Principles.
Principle base.
PALS.
As we were there, we were talking about how to learn more about the SITES program and the moral foundations. And I love the idea of having a kind of a short little training for us, and maybe we share that with the other boards that if they also choose, but then waiting to fully participate as board members until we split, so that when we do that full participation, we're doing it with our teachers and not teachers that we'll never see again or whatever. And I'm again fully in favor of this resolution, and it's impacted me already in my life, in my career. So
I attended the sites partnership meeting that we went to, and I was so impressed with the reciprocal nature of this partnership. I knew that they placed interns, which I was an intern in my early years in the Nebo district, but I didn't realize how much professional development that they offer continually, and so many different tracks and opportunities for our district. Professional development just was so impressive. So I am also in favor of this and appreciate the opportunities that they provide.
I would add, not only in support for the reasons that have been given by the other board members, but I fully support it because it acknowledges, in my opinion, that we're not just talking about K-12 we're talking about K-16 and beyond. I mean, it's not completely separate systems. This is, we feed into higher education, and so I think it's really important that we partner with institutions of higher education so that there is that opportunity for reciprocity, for learning going both ways. So I 100% support our participation in this partnership.
Board Member Hilton, do we partner with, this is BYU, which is great, but do we partner with UVU in a similar way, or how do we partner with them?
I know that Alpine School District has partnered with UVU. The BYU public school partnership is unique across the country, quite honestly, in terms of the length and duration of this partnership. It is not uncommon for universities to partner with school districts for the placement of, primarily for placement of their students, their student teachers in that. That is not uncommon. What is uncommon is the expanded role that this partnership plays, not only for the placement of teachers, but also in the professional learning opportunities that was referred to earlier for ongoing development of teachers. And there is a reciprocity. I've been at the university side of things and participated in the partnership that way, and it's been beneficial to me at the university level to partner with public schools. And I think it's been beneficial for public schools to partner with the university on many, many different levels. So, yeah, it's been around, I think, at least for 35 to 40 years.
1996, so yeah, 30 years.
30 years, okay, 30 years.
David, your question was, do we also partner with UVU? Just at least a partial answer on that. I don't know the ins and outs of it yet, but they have an organization called K-16 Alliance, and Alpine has participated in that, and we are being invited to those things as well. So we're certain, I would foresee us being crazy not to. They're in our district, and having strong relationships with both universities is going to help our students as well as future educators. So
thank you, Dr. Jensen and Board Member Hilton.
Okay, any additional? I appreciated the as we went to that orientation meeting, the ability or their recognition, I guess, of the fact that it can benefit board members to get training. I thought, oh, wow. I mean, I was really excited about that opportunity. I've heard about associates and so to have say, oh, I would get to do that. I was really excited about that. So yeah, I'm excited. Okay, any additional? Oh yeah, Grace. We have sorry, and I should have mentioned that at the beginning of this meeting. We do have Grace coming in virtually from Hawaii. So Grace, do you have any comment on the BYU public school partnership?
I just think it's great to support Sterling and all those he associates with there at BYU. It's a good partnership.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of passing resolution 2026-007, participation in BYU public school partnership, all in favor say aye. Aye. Grace?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, seeing none, that passes.
Okay, our second action item tonight is resolution number 2026-008, authorizing the solicitation of bids, design, engineering, and construction of a new district office facility. And so we've been looking at different options for some time. We've talked about that in some of our study sessions, and you've seen possible renderings or plans that were very rough, but we are at a point where we need to get serious about moving on this possibility of designing and building a new district office. And so that's what's up for action.
Okay, before I entertain a motion, I wanted to give Jason Sundberg time to discuss this a little bit, and then I'll accept a motion after him.
Thank you. Yeah, that's right on. We've looked at we've had the Alpine team give us some preliminary design options for that. We've looked at building size from about 18,000 square feet to 22,000 square feet, and it's on existing property. The property that we have out in front of the warehouse and surplus there, looking for somebody to come help us further those designs. Some of the options we've looked at is just to try and be close to the office that we have there that has quite a bit of space to be able to house almost all of our district staff in one location. I think that's a big priority for the board, for the school board, to be able to have that close interaction and to have as many people in one building as possible, while still utilizing that space that would just be across the parking lot for purchasing and physical facilities, technology in that area. So yeah, this would just start the process. It wouldn't start the process of looking at bids, how much it would cost for the design and engineering, and also working with bids to be able to see what the price per square foot would be in a project like this.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion for Resolution 2026-008, authorizing the solicitation of bids, design, engineering, and construction of a new district office facility.
I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, got a motion from Board Member Fugel. Can I get a second?
I second.
A second from Board Member Hilton. I will now open it for discussion amongst the board, please.
Just a question for Jason. Mr. Gadd just talked about possibly using Valley View. Has that been looked at? And the other possibility is farming out different sections of the district office into smaller schools. I don't know that I agree with that. I think it makes those who don't belong to the full district office kind of, I don't know how to explain that. But any thoughts on that as we've explored?
Yeah, we've explored it a little bit, not in total depth, but looking at some of the retrofit. Say, for example, the school that's being retrofitted for special school at the Sharon site. That type of retrofitting and remodeling is going to be around $3 million, and so a similar project for that, changing a school into an office setting, if it was a Valley View, probably be in a similar ballpark for that. And then looking at, is that a long-term, short-term solution? I think that the board has talked about the Sharon School as kind of a short-term thing until future special school can be built in the next 5 to 10 years, whatever that time frame looks like. Yeah, there could be some possibilities of turning classrooms into that, but it would be a lot of more remote work of not that synergies that you'd have as one location, I think.
And what about the parking situation or the traffic situation in Valley View? Would that work? I mean,
No, that wouldn't work.
can you speak to that, knowing Pleasant Grove as well as you do?
I can speak to that actually, because that's in my area. And when they've been doing their professional development there, it is overwhelming for the neighborhoods to have. There's not enough parking there. They've even
we've already started doing some work there.
Yeah. So Alpine School District has been using it for their Wonders training. And so when you have that many people coming in, they've even turned the entire blacktop area in the back of the school into parking spots. And even with that, the traffic spills out into the neighborhoods. If our goal, I guess I'll give my comment now.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thanks. That's what I wanted to kind of hear, just to kind of finish exploring what Mr. Gadd and what I've thought about too. I think all of us have a little bit, you know.
Well, you know, on a city aspect, the Valley View's always been a problem because of night things. There's never was adequate parking. It wasn't good for the neighborhood. It was good because it was a neighborhood school, but we didn't build enough parking there when we first built school because of the site. And really, district offices, in my opinion, don't belong in a neighborhood. So that's why using our existing land down where all of our facility is a win-win situation. Then taking one of our elementaries, even maybe a future elementary we're going to close down and build a district. It's just the access and everything else, and having everything on one site.
Okay, thank you, all three of you. Thanks.
Also, when we were, so this just goes back, and I don't think that we necessarily talked about this regarding doing it for a district office, but and they're talking about the Sharon School and how this was a short-term solution for a problem that we need to address immediately, but that we want to address it long-term. And the conversation I had with Frank Pulley, facilities director for ASD, was that there is a kind of a lifespan for a lot of systems. So your HVAC systems, your electrical systems, even your plumbing systems, that when they reach a certain age, they get to a point where it costs more to maintain them or a need to replace. Also, initially when we were starting out as a district and we were trying to find a place for our district, our board meetings, and because we recognized the fact that the little theater at Orem High School was not very conducive to what we were trying to accomplish, I approached Darren actually about doing it at Valley View because it was open, available, we could use it, but the expense to bring the technology needed that we're using to communicate with our public as far as the live streaming and all of that infrastructure that would be needed was going to be expensive. It was going to cost more than it would be worth. So all of those things just make sense that, I mean, for maybe twice the price we can get something brand new. The other thought that I want to bring to the board's attention is that we are going to have a full staff. I mean, we're doing this rolling hiring right now, and these individuals that we have hired are currently housed at Alpine School District. But when we start July 1, 2027, we need a place. We need somewhere for them to work. And I don't know how the time frame is going to go with this. Maybe we won't be done with the district office in time, but I would hope shortly thereafter. So we may have to be at Valley View for the short term. Who knows? But yeah, I think it's very important for the cohesion. We talk as a board, or maybe it's just me, about we're creating a team here. And when you have your SPED department is over here, and your facilities is over here, and your PDC is over here, and you've got, purchasing out here, and all of these different things, that is not good for team culture, in my opinion. And so the opportunity that we have to build something, and also we are looking long term. We're not looking for a Band-Aid. We're not looking for something that's just going to fix it. That hasn't served ASD well, I think, over the past. We need to look for the future. We want to take some pride in our district and have a space that people can look to and go, yeah, that's our school district. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much.
I would like to just add and speak a little bit to this notion of the importance of having all of the support in the same place. You spoke to that a little bit, Jen, about being a team, and there is truth to that. There's substantial research in organizations that when individuals, departments, groups are not in the same physical location as a decision-making entity of that organization, they suffer in terms of access and in terms of visibility. That's across the board. That's not unique to education. That's in any organization. I think all of the elements of our organization, all of the departments need access to the decision-making body of this organization. And therefore, I have, from the get-go, been a strong advocate that we build and have a space that allows and accommodates all the departments to be in one space for that reason.
Can I just add a note of appreciation? As we have started our school district, we've landed in a number of different spots, as you can tell by the location of our board meetings, and we're grateful to schools who have and offices who have housed us. And thank you, Jill, for all your work in helping us when there was nobody else but you. We appreciate that, but we can't operate bouncing around. Especially our tech team needs some permanency in where we meet, and we want it to be a beautiful space where our public will feel welcomed, and there will be, space provided for the needs that each one in the district has. So we're excited for this opportunity, and we're doing it not Taj Mahal style. We're going to try to make it look as good as well as it can be, but anyway, we're grateful for those who have housed us to this point.
Yeah, and I'd also add to that, the nice thing on a building like that, it's not going to be the same price per square foot as a school building. It's a little different construction, so it's going to be less than a school would be in new construction. The other thing that's nice that Alpine has prepared well for this split, the last 3 or 4 years added to the capital fund and collected through property tax a building fund that they've been building up. It was before the split even happened. It was more of an idea to build schools with cash rather than with bonding. But there's going to be quite a bit of fund balance to be able to divide between the 3 districts for this purpose. And Alpine has actually preloaded $10 million to each school district to be able to use as they see fit for these type of situations. So
Jason, did you say each or did you say all?
every one of them.
And that 10 million specifically, just for clarification, is for capital outlays.
It can only be used for capital projects.
Right, for capital projects, which is different than operating expenses.
Correct.
Okay,
Different than teaching and learning.
Yes.
Different than salaries.
Right,
So,
right. And that's an important distinction, I think.
So there is not going to be a bond.
There is no bond.
No bond is needed for this project.
Could I speak to something?
Yes, please, Grace.
I have noticed, not just today in the comments, but also there have been comments online that we should use one of the schools that we might possibly close in the future. And I think number one, we have not decided on any school to close, if any schools we are going to close. But any school we do close, if we do, would have the construction issues of the age, like you were saying, Jen, that it sometimes costs more to rebuild a school than it does to just build it from where it needs to be. So financially, it's not necessarily a boon to do something like that.
Thank you very much, Grace.
Also, that plan would not be ready when we need the building as well.
Yeah, regardless of any decisions we make on schools consolidating, we have a need to house employees starting July 1, 2027. And so there's really no way.
I'd like to just continue Grace's comment that we could hold off on this decision and plan to lease, but that's not long-term planning. That's a big chunk of money that is essentially lost with a lease, where we could use that money. I would think that by time we lease and then plan to retrofit a school that potentially gets closed, we're halfway to a new district building that's new and long-lasting. And as Grace spoke and Jen has spoken, that the buildings we have in our district now don't have that longevity option.
Grace, did you have something else?
No, I just agreed with both both of what you and Michelle said.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this resolution 2026-008? Okay, seeing none. All in favor of resolution 2026-008, authorizing the solicitation of bids, design, engineering, and construction of a new district office facility. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, seeing none, that passes. I will now turn the time back over to Dr. Jensen for talking on resolution 2026-009.
All right, our last action item tonight is resolution 2026-009. It's a memo of understanding for alternative schools with Aspen Peaks School District. So I think almost everyone here toured our alternative schools about a month and a half ago, Polaris and Summit. These are the two main alternative schools, secondary schools, for students who have different challenges or needs that are not met as well in a regular school. And the sense I got in talking with all of you as you toured those schools is I think we were all very impressed with the culture and just the setup and the teachers and the commitment level of the employees in these schools. And so what this resolution does is this resolution allows us to work with Aspen Peaks, and it's for a period of 3 years from July 1st of 2027. It's until the lease runs out on the building that they're in, and that would buy us time to be able to then decide what we're going to do long term for our alternative schools. But in the meantime, it allows us to do it in a way that is much less disruptive to the students or the employees. It allows us to share the cost of that between the two districts and continue a similar robust program for our alternative schools students that Alpine has been providing. This is only between Aspen Peaks and Timpanogos for just sheer geography reasons. Lake Mountain has decided not to participate in this memo of understanding, but that is what is on the discussion for resolution 2026-009.
Okay, I will entertain a motion for passing resolution 2026-009, the MOU for alternative schools with Aspen Peaks School District.
I so move.
Okay, I have a motion from Board Member Smith. Can I get a second?
Second.
I'll give it to Board Member Wilson. A second from Board Member Wilson. Let's open this up for discussion as well, please.
I have a question for Superintendent Jensen. Does this include anything East Shore-wise, or is this just Polaris Summit?
This is specifically Polaris and Summit.
Thank you.
I just want to speak to with gratitude for this resolution because both of these schools, Polaris and Summit, have dedicated faculty who have been there because they choose to be there. They love these students, the student body. They know how to help them graduate. They know how to help them set goals and achieve them in difficult circumstances. And anyway, I appreciate this element of certainty they can plan for the future, and it gives us some time to also determine what's going to be best for them in our new school district. So thank you.
Yeah, I would build on that and say I was very impressed when we visited those schools with the dedication and the vision that those faculties and principals had. And I think this is a great option for our students to continue to have access to those programs for the next few years. It's become very clear to me that this does then give us a short period of time, a few years, to start planning and making plans for what's going to come after this agreement ends, because I'm pretty sure that we want it to be seamless and smooth, but that we will then need to be thinking in advance for how do we transition at 2030. And this gives us some time where we don't have to think about it immediately. We can delay thinking about that for a year or maybe even 18 months, and then we can start thinking about it and making some decisions so that things will be in place for 2030.
I have a question on that. Is there the option that we could still partner with Aspen Peaks after 2030, but this is just until 2030?
Yeah. So I was gonna bring that up, that this doesn't mean that that's all we're doing. So I think it's gonna be great for us to have the opportunity to see how this goes and how it works. I think the reason we put the 2030 on it is because there is the lease obligation already set with Alpine School District that Aspen Peak, since it's in their boundaries, are going to take. So we have worked on this in the negotiations, so it will be reflective of the agreement between the two districts. But yeah, I mean, and it would depend. They have made mention that that property is valuable for other things in the city, possibly. So if they are to relocate the program, that would be there will be some type of board or some type of board involvement and staff involvement in a joint committee that will deal with issues, and there are stipulations in there as far as a time frame to inform us of any changes and that kind of a thing. So I think this will be a great opportunity for the short term, and we'll see how it goes.
I'd like to just build on that, it's my sense in our conversations with Aspen Peaks around this specific issue that there is common interest in being communicative with each other about our ongoing needs, and that for right now this is meeting both of our needs, and that if at any point in this agreement those needs start to shift, there's goodwill in sharing that and being open and transparent so that neither one of the districts is left surprised with any changes that might happen in the future. So and for me, Michelle, that speaks to your question a little bit too. It's like we're not saying that we're not, but we're going to need, I guess what I really am trying to say is we're going to need to continue to engage in conversations with Aspen Peaks over the next few years around this issue. We can't just set it aside and say, oh, we'll start thinking about it in 2030. We've got to be thinking about it and engaging in conversation over the next few years.
Will the busing situation to Polaris and Summit continue like it has in the past?
Yes, part of the MOU says that we'll each bus our own students there. One interesting note too, they pointed out when we were there touring, is that if you go out the front door, you're in American Fork. If you go out the back door, you're in Pleasant Grove. And so it literally is right on the border. And so if you look on a map, our furthest student, unless you go up the canyon to Sundance, is actually closer than their furthest student. So geographically, it works for both districts for the rest of this lease.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none. Oh yeah, Grace, sorry. Do you have any comment about?
No discussion. I think that Polaris and our alternative schools are doing a great job. I'm glad we can work with them a little bit longer.
It speaks so well to I think the board's willingness to make an effort to get out to each of these schools and the emphasis we put on that. I think if we hadn't seen these, maybe our decision making would have been different. So I want to applaud the board for being willing to do that. Okay, seeing as there's no further discussion, all in favor of approving resolution 2026-009, the MOU for alternative schools with Aspen Peak School District, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, seeing as there is none, that passes. Okay, we will now turn the time over to Superintendent Jensen for his comments, and then we'll just go down the row. We'll start with Michelle and end with David on board member comments.
Okay, I think what I would like to focus on this evening, yeah, it's there. I'll do a couple of things, but the first thing I want to just acknowledge is just the sheer commitment and work that this board has been willing to do. And I just want to say thank you personally. They together toured they toured every school we have, every property we have, just to get eyes on the physical facility and understand what we're dealing with those different schools. And it's amazing how different schools are from school to school in that way. Then on top of that, they've been participating 2, sometimes 3, never 4, but often 3 board members would be at each of our vision and values visits, which included a visit with students, teachers, school leadership, and faculty. So each of those visits were between 2 and 3 hours, and there were 2 or 3 board members at every one of those. We visited every school but Mountain View. We'll catch Mountain View in the fall, just partly because we ran out of time, partly because they were getting a new principal. But I appreciate the commitment to that. And then on top of that, I just see so many other willing efforts to go on a field trip up to Jordan, to learn from them about their online options, to learn from Jordan Ridge Elementary School about a possible ALL option in every elementary school. They are learners, this board is, and I highly value that and I appreciate that. Then the other thing I would just love to do is announce our new hires this week. We feel really, really fortunate and blessed to add 3 new people to our team. Hiram Clark, he's here. Hiram, wave your hand. He will be our legal counsel in Timpanogos School District, and we are really fortunate to have gotten Hiram. We also have Joe Hayes, who will be over our safety and logistics. That's what he's been doing in Alpine for some time, and has a wealth of knowledge and experience. And then Rex Brimhall has been running the West Transportation Garage for quite a few years, and we were able to hire him. And so every time we hire new members of our team, I personally sleep better at night. So thank you for that. But even more important than that, we really are building a team that's going to affect our kids' education for the next 20 or 30 years, and that's important. And so I appreciate that. And with that, I'll turn the time back to you.
We'll start with Michelle and just go down the row.
My board member comment is right back at Dr. Jensen and Jason and Karen. Thank you so much for the time and investment that you put into those vision and value meetings. They were monumental. Such an effort. Your voice was gone by the 13th one, and he had 16 more. So, and Karen for organizing, and Jason for coming too. And also our Super 6, thank you so much for coming. Those were a very pivotal and important thing for us to do to help us craft our vision further with community input, and we just appreciate your investment in that as well.
I just like to say I sleep a whole lot better too, Superintendent. And with every new hire, and I especially welcome the new ones, and so we're building a great team together. So let's just keep it going.
Okay, I'm going to let Grace talk now. Grace, do you want to go?
Yes, I'd love to. I just want to tell Darren thank you for the thought that he gave at the beginning, and why are we doing the things the way we are. I think it's really important for us to consider why Alpine is doing things the way they are. And should we continue doing them that way? Can we make them better? And if there are any reasons that we're doing, if we start to change things, I would like to ask those who know why we're doing them to let us know, well, if we're going to change them, why we shouldn't do it or why we should do it better, so that we can really look at history and become better at everything we're doing. Kind of like our going to Jordan School District, and they do it and some online school stuff so well. I think we can improve, but I don't want to I don't know, throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, and get rid of things that are really, really important for us to continue.
Thank you. Um, I just wanted to talk quickly about one of these things as we started in our new district. We're told often that we're property rich. We're going to have all this property, and initially I was thinking, oh yeah, that's great, that's great. But as we look at each property, with the Sharon School, being able to utilize that to meet a need, I see some needs that could be met with other properties that we have. Valley View, for example, as we went and toured Jordan, I thought, okay, well maybe we could use these properties to um, as opportunities for learning. Maybe not necessarily. I always thought it was kind of just this balance sheet thing, right? I'm a bookkeeper, so that's what I was looking at, how to balance everything. Can we sell these properties and then we can make up the difference? But what I see now is more, okay, how can we utilize the properties that we have to further the education for each student in our district? Are there things that we can do better? Are there different programs we can offer in a different way that will bless students for now and in years to come? And so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the learning that we're doing as a board about all of these different issues. We are heading into a summer that is going to be really intense and busy, and I would be worried about the demands on our time, but we've stepped up. We have all been stepping up since November 25th, and I imagine we will continue. My husband keeps asking, when's it going to slow down? And I think maybe July 2nd, 2027, I can take a breath and we can maybe take a break. But until then, just so you guys know, we are full throttle, doing our best to come up with the best situations and decisions moving forward to provide the best education for each of the students in this area.
My comments center around the learning that I've experienced, and I think the board's experienced over the past couple of weeks. We went on that field trip up to Jordan. I really appreciated learning and seeing how they approach some of their educational opportunities. Yeah, and we really appreciate Jordan taking that time to share their learning with us. So they were very generous, and I just really appreciated learning and thinking and exploring possibilities. And I couple that with the learning that I've experienced around our conversations around the criteria for robust and thriving schools. That's, for me, very important that we approach our boundary study not only from an emotional perspective, but also from an objective perspective that's tied to our vision about what we want to accomplish in this school district, which is robust and thriving and joyful learning for each student. That's going to help us. And to that end, I'd like to end my comments with an observation and even an invitation for all of us and for our community our communities that we represent. And that is, as we engage in this boundary study over the next several months, we recognize that change can be hard and that change will impact all of us to some degree or another. And those communities where change is impacting them the most it's hard to live with that kind of change unless we see ourselves as a member of a larger community. So we are members of our neighborhoods, we're members of our specific boundaries of our elementary school and of our junior high and of our high school. Yes, we're members of those communities, but we are also members of a district that encompasses all of those in Pleasant Grove, in Orem, in Linden, and in Vineyard. And if we can see ourselves as that collective, if we really are part of that community, then I know, at least for me, I'm able to endure hardship or willing to make a decision that's hard for me when I see that it benefits the larger community that I identify with. And so I invite each one of us to identify and see ourselves as that larger community as we work together for this collective and not just for our smaller community.
I just want to take a minute to express appreciation to our board leadership. As I look at our online calendar, they meet frequently at board leadership, and I just know I can tell the time that you've invested, and really it's irreplaceable, the leadership that you've given our district, and I just want to say thank you. I also want to express to our graduating class of 4 high schools that are in our district, this is an exciting time for them, and our thoughts and hearts are with them as they look at the next steps in their lives. In the Alpine School District, I have the privilege of representing 5 different high schools, and it's been a very full and joyful week for me. So I just celebrate the opportunity to be there and to feel their excitement. And I look forward to being in a district that challenges these kids to be the very best they can be.
First, I want to echo the thanks to given to Dr. Jensen and Jason Sundberg, as well as Jen and Sterling as our board leadership. They're spending a ton of time and a lot of thought and sleepless nights. Although they're sleeping better, they're still sleepless nights. So thank you. Want to give a report on the District Dash. If you haven't seen it on the Facebook, Instagram page, we have 2 more legs. The next leg starts at Bonneville this Saturday, 7:30. Last time we had some people who weren't quite strong enough to run, but they could bike, and they biked with us to Bonneville. So we welcome bikers as well as runners as we run from Bonneville down the hill, along Front Runner to Trailside, and then over to Vineyard on the Front Runner path. And then at an unknown, the tracks, there's a trail that goes right along Front Runner tracks. Yeah, yep, the path.
And some walking happens.
And some walking happens, yeah. And then the last one, I'm not sure if we set a date yet, we will soon, but it will complete the loop going from Vineyard Elementary back to Mount Mahogany where we started, past our own dump, the Linden dump. We'll be passing that, and then heading over the freeway, or I think it goes over the freeway to Mount Mahogany. So we're excited for that. And the last is we've announced before that we've met with Orem City Council, and we met with Pleasant Grove Council this last, about a week ago, something like that. And then we met with Linden a few days before that. We just finished meeting with Vineyard. That's our 4 municipalities. And we were able to meet with their city council down in Vineyard. That's a thriving, growing, as we all know. They are bringing more and more kids to our district as the rest of the district kind of shrinks just a little bit because of the population, the change. But we had a great conversation with them, and they're more than willing to help us out in this endeavor that we have in ways that we didn't anticipate. We'll find out how it all goes. But they were very, very supportive and excited to help us. And we just had a great meeting with them. We'll be meeting with them 3 times a year, along with our other municipalities. So almost like once a month with every municipality. And that'll be a nice thing to do, to partner with them, because they are our partners with the kids and with the populations of our district.
And oh,
I tried to add it, but it's not showing up. But our boundary study meetings, community focus groups are June 1st and 2nd.
they're cluster meetings.
Cluster meetings. Orem High, Monday, June 1st, 9:30. Mountain View High, Monday, June 1st, 12 p.m. Pleasant Grove, Monday at 2:30. And then Timpanogos High back here again, Tuesday at 2:30.
And when you say Mountain View High School, that's not just Mountain View High and their principal and their community. That's Mountain View, Trailside, Vineyard, the whole cluster.
It's
The-
well,
the
and it's really an
feeder system.
opportunity for our public to come to one of those times. You don't,
Right.
if you can't make it to the Mountain View one and you're a Mountain View parent, please come to the Pleasant Grove or Timpanogos or
Okay,
whatever fits
perfect,
your
thank you.
schedule. Also, we will have a feedback opportunity that we'll post even if you're not able to attend the meetings. So watch for that coming.
And just to be clear, what those cluster meetings on June 1st and 2nd are intended to do is to give us an opportunity to interact with our larger community around the criteria that we have been talking about today in our work session and that we're talking tomorrow with our principals about what it means, what is our criteria for robust and thriving schools. So this is an opportunity to, again, allow us to be expanded and learn around that from our community. Thanks.
Thank you, yes. And then Jason Sundberg wanted the last word today, so I'll turn some time over to him.
I didn't mean to be the last one, so you can say something after too. But I had a note in my email that I wanted to just share. So this was back May 7th. So I looked, and it must have been at Pleasant Grove High School. All those visits kind of mixed together. But there was somebody, a teacher, I think, in one of those that talked about being sustained and supported, and it just really resonated with me. Like Dr. Jensen and I feel like we have a lot of work ahead of us with our team and all those that can help, but I think it makes it easier, a lot easier for me, and I think I can speak for him in that just feeling the support from the board and just that oneness with us to be able to accomplish those things. So thank you very much for that support and that feeling of sustaining us. It really is appreciated.
That was a good final word. Okay, we have need to go into closed session per Utah Code 524205 as needed to discuss personnel, property, litigation, and collective bargaining. I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I move that we go into closed session.
Okay, so moved by Board Member Hilton.
I second.
Second from Board Member Smith. We have need to do a roll call vote for going into closed session. Board Member Smith.
Aye.
Board Member Wilson.
Aye.
Board Member Hilton.
Aye.
Board Member Lyman. Aye. Board Member Fugel.
Aye.
Board Member Sorensen.
Aye.
Board Member Rex.
Aye.
Okay, seeing that is unanimous, we will adjourn this meeting to go enter into closed session at, yes, that's it. Our next board meeting is June 17th, and it will be back at our regularly scheduled place. Yes.